What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. Stand for Justice. 1JM. Chapter 0 Prologue. Advertisement. See Circle Calendar 1492. North Blue Tobias Kingdom. When Chuan was born again in the baby state, he suddenly remembered seeing a video on Zion. A normal child is born. Wow. A child is born in Gui province. Cousin, I'm getting rough. Quote. Advertisement. Therefore, he was thinking, how should he shout to be different? Ma'am, it's a boy. The 5-year-old midwife picked up Chuan, who was in a baby state, and happily said to the weak woman on the bed. For a boy, let's call it Cross. Amphitheater Cross. The woman's pale face forced a smile, her big blue eyes were full of tiredness, but when she looked at the baby in the midwife's hands, she was full of love. Suddenly, the woman asked worriedly, boy, why didn't the baby make a sound? Could it be a mute? Don't worry ma'am, the young master looks very healthy, just slap him lightly. The midwife said with a smile. Advertisement. Snapped. In the next second, the midwife slapped Chuan's buttocks with a slap, and the intense pain made him yell, wow, subconsciously waved his hand, and grabbed one of the midwife's fingers. Then there was a crisp cracking sound of click, and the midwife raised her hand with a dull expression, looking at her bent right index finger. Ah, it hurts me to death. The midwife suddenly threw Chuan onto the bed, clutching her broken index finger, and screamed deafeningly. Chapter 1 The opening of the prelude to the era. Advertisement. See Circle Calendar 1500 North Blue Kingdom of Tobias. Boom boom boom. There was a knock on the door, causing a little silver-haired boy lying on the balcony railing to turn his head and look behind him. Then, the thick oak door was pushed open with a slight creak sound, only to see a white-haired old man in a black tuxedo leading two middle-aged maids in, holding a phone bug the size of a human head. Master Cross, the video phone bug is here. The old housekeeper said a word, and then waved to the two middle-aged maids behind him to find a place to put the video phone bug they were holding. Grandpa Henry, thank you. Hearing this, Cross quickly turned around and returned to the bedroom from the balcony. Butler Henriel smiled, bent down and aimed the video phone bug on the coffee table at an empty wall, and then clicked the button, and the video phone bug, who had been sleeping with closed eyes, suddenly opened his eyes. Cross saw that the eyes of the video phone worm released light, shining on the empty wall, and a picture was immediately revealed. However, the viewing angle of this video phone bug is good. The scene is a crowded square, with people of all ages, women and children, and it is rare to see a lot of fierce or weird guys. Surrounded by many Marine soldiers holding muskets and strong Marine generals, as well as expressionless agents in black suits, it can be described as heavily guarded. As for the middle of the square, there is a 10-meter-high execution platform, on which sits cross-legged a black-haired man, wearing a red-brown coat with golden shoulder pads, his hands are baked by wooden shackles and iron chains, and behind him stand an executioner with a long knife. That's right, the video phone bug projected onto the wall was a live broadcast from the town of East Blue Rog. Goldo Luogia, known as the One Piece by the world, sat cross-legged on a high execution platform, waiting for Marine's execution. Hey, One Piece, where is the treasure you found? Did you get the legendary big secret treasure? The big secret treasure, One Piece, that is connected together. Suddenly, a voice came from the video phone bug, as if someone in the square was asking about Luogia on the execution platform. Here we come, this historic moment. Cross's expression lifted, and he couldn't help but sit up straight. Ahahaha. On the execution platform, Luogia smiled, let out a heroic laugh, and said loudly, do you want my treasure? I can give you everything you want, go find it. Advertisement. I put all my treasure there. Quote. Suddenly, this bewitching voice made the world seem to quiet down. In the next second, an angry roar suddenly sounded. Luogia, you be D, kill him. The executioner hurriedly raised his long knife and stabbed it into Luogia's body forcefully. Pooh. With the soft sound of entering the meat, blood spattered out. At this moment, the voyage of the Grand Line was completed, the Grand Line was conquered, and the man known as One Piece by the world died. Cross had a complex expression on his face, staring blankly at the projection on the wall, and listening to the live sound from Rog Town from the video phone bug, which gave him a shocking feeling of witnessing history. Although he didn't go to the scene, but with the live broadcast of the video phone bug, he can be regarded as witnessing the fall of One Piece with his own eyes. And he knew that at this very moment, Luogia's voice was spreading to the whole world like a virus in various ways, letting everyone in the world know about the great secret treasure open black lens bracket One Piece close black lens bracket. The era of the great pirates begins here. It's a pity that I didn't go to witness it with my own eyes. Cross muttered to himself, even though he was in North Blue, he could feel the demeanor of this One Piece just through the live broadcast of the video phone bug. Facing death calmly and starting an era with his own life, even if he is a pirate with blood on his hands, he can't help admiring him. At this time, the old butler shook his head and said with a sigh, I thought the death of this One Piece would calm the restless sea. It seems that troublesome times are coming. Cross turned his gaze, and his sapphire blue eyes paused for a moment on the wrinkled old face of the old butler, then looked at the two middle-aged maids who were fascinated, and said meaningfully, Grandpa Henry, this is a new era, and it has begun. It can be said that now, Countless people are rushing to the sea, and the big secret treasure, One Piece, has made countless people crazy about it. The old butler looked at Cross in surprise, and said slowly, that's not like what an 8-year-old child said. Come on, Grandpa Henry. Cross said disdainfully, a newborn baby won't break a midwife's finger. The old butler laughed and said, that's right, you are a little monster. Cross smiled, did not speak, but reached out to turn off the video phone bug, and then slowly stood up from the sofa. Advertisement. After a while, he said softly, perhaps, it's time to inform that father who doesn't like me is back. After all, countless people are rushing to the sea right now. If they are still outside, it would be too disturbing. Boo 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 boo. Before he could finish speaking, a call of a phone bug came from Henry's arms. The old butler frowned slightly, and took out a small phone bug from his pocket. As soon as it was connected, the phone bug burst into tears, crying wildly, woo woo. Mr. Holland is dead, Nani. In an instant, the faces of the old housekeeper and Cross changed suddenly. Bang 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 bang. Boom, 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 help, forgive me, please forgive me. Ah, brothers, grab this ship and go to sea to find the big secret treasure, One Piece. The next man to become One Piece must be me. Little ones, go to sea. Quote. At the same time, there were violent gunshots from the other end of the phone bug, as if it was a war, and there were various cries, screams and wanton shouts, with a feeling of extreme confusion. Stop making such jokes, Warwick. The old butler shouted into the phone bug in his hand angrily, tell me what's going on, what happened to Mr. Hulk? This country, the people in this country are crazy. The person on the other end of the phone bug said in a horrified tone, the city is full of guys who want to go to sea to become pirates. They wantonly rob the ships on the port. The tourist boat Mr. Holland was on was robbed by a group of people, and many people who resisted died, woo. The description of the amphitheater family's chief guard crying, as well as the chaotic movement from the phone bug, made Cross, Henry, and the two middle-aged maids stunned in place, almost unable to believe what they heard. How long has it been? The era of great pirates has come. Cross muttered to himself. Chapter 2 North Blue's Gold Killer. Advertisement. 7 years later. Short silver hair, a pure white shirt, and a black windbreaker with a blue arabesque pattern. A strong body over 1.8 meters tall, with a samurai sword on his waist. In the spacious bedroom of the gorgeous villa, Cross looked in the mirror, couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth, and said happily, I'm so G handsome. In his previous life, he was just a third-class cripple with a height of less than 1.7 meters, and he had nothing but good looks. I didn't expect that he just lived to be 15 years old in this life, not to mention his handsome appearance, and his height is over 1.8 meters. I don't know if he can grow to the average height of Marine Admiral when he becomes an adult. Well, that's right, as a good young man in the new era who caught up with the crossing flight, he said that he has seen many things like crossing, but this time it's his turn, it's nothing unusual. After all, before he crossed, he won the 5 million grand prize because he bought a bet of double color balls. As a result, he was accidentally hit and killed by a car on the way to redeem the bonus. Fortunately, my bonus should be regarded as an inheritance and left to my parents, so I have money for retirement. Suddenly, Cross's eyes moved slightly, he raised his hand to touch his smooth chin, looked into the mirror of his coat, and said without turning his head, hey, the B********** D who broke into other people's homes without permission, even if he didn't report his name, he still treats me handsomely. Express your opinion. There was a moment of silence in the air, and a white mask suddenly appeared on the wall, like a ghost. Then a tall and thin guy walked through the wall, wearing a shiny silver suit, holding a half-meter-long sharp knife in his left hand, and a short trigger pistol in his right hand. Narcissistic brat, you found out that I'm not called a guard. Should I say you are arrogant, or ignorant? A hoarse voice came out from behind the mask, as if it was a man. Cross put his hands on his waist, turned around leisurely, looked at the mysterious man in front of him with a mocking expression, and said casually, you are not the first guy to touch my room, you are used to it. I'm so proud. The man chuckled, looked Cross up and down, and said mockingly, it's just a 15-year-old kid, and he's actually called the pride of the Tobias Kingdom. It seems that those pirates and killers, all of them are rubbish. Maybe, you can try it too. Cross shrugged nonchalantly. Little ghost, I am different from those garbage killers you have encountered before. There is a world of difference. The man said proudly. I am, Wu Ying, Ed Wintink, North Blue's #1 gold medal killer, isn't it? The kind of third-rate trash who dares to call himself a killer after killing a few gangsters. That's right. Cross curled his lips in disdain, and said, the last guy, or even the last guy, said similar things, but I don't feel any difference. Advertisement. HMPH, I wanted to make your death easier, but now, I've changed my mind and plan to let you taste the real pain. Ed Wintink, who calls himself the gold medal killer, sneered, just finished speaking, he decisively raised the short percussion pistol in his hand, pointed it at Cross's chest and pulled the trigger. Boom. There was a shot. Flames burst out from the dark muzzle of the gun, and a buckshot escaped from the chest, flying towards Cross, chest at high speed. However, at that moment, Cross' figure moved slightly, and he easily avoided Ed Wintink's gunshot just by turning his body slightly, but the coat mirror behind him was hit by lead bullets, and it shattered. fall to the ground. It's my turn. The next second, with cold eyes in his eyes, Cross suddenly rushed forward, so fast that he turned into a black shadow, whipped up a strong wind out of thin air, and escaped from the lock of the opponent's gun like lightning. So fast. Immediately, Wen Tink felt a blur in front of his eyes, and found that the opponent had come in front of him, and even he only had time to move his body to the right before he was punched in the shoulder by the opponent. Bang! At this moment, Wen Tink only felt that the opponent's fist was like a hammer, and the terrifying power burst out in an instant, causing him to fly backwards several meters away on the spot, and hit the masonry wall behind him heavily. As a result, a loud bang was heard, and a big hole was punched through the thick masonry wall. Wen Tink fell directly on the sofa in the outer room of the bedroom. Smashed in two. Immediately, a strong fist wind spread, as if a gust of air had blown by, kicking up a cloud of dust, covering the entire room with a layer of dust. Sigh, I thought the gold medal killer had some big skills, but it turns out he's just a big talker. Cross walked forward slowly, raised his hand to fan the smoke and dust in the air, and said a little bored. Bone is broken, cough cough cough. Wen Tink clutched his hit shoulder, couldn't help coughing a few times, and then spat out a big mouthful of blood, instantly staining the suit and shirt on his chest red. When Cross was about to walk in front of Wen Tink, he turned over with difficulty and stood up in the wreckage of the sofa. His right arm was hanging down weakly, and he said in a low voice, One punch broke my shoulder, you really only, are you 15 years old? Based on my current body, I'm only 15 years old. Cross nodded, laughing. I really met a monster. Wen Tink stared at the young and immature face in front of him with a pale face, and said in a low voice, This time I missed it, but I will come to you again. Advertisement. While speaking, his body was slowly sinking, and both legs had already sunk into the floor. This is. Cross widened his eyes and said in surprise, no wonder he sneaked into my room wearing a shiny silver suit. It turned out to be demon fruit power. However, even if you are a capable person, don't even try to escape. Suddenly, Cross yelled loudly, stepped forward without hesitation, and punched out like a heavy cannon, setting off a violent gust of wind in the room. Bang! The entire room was shaking, and the thick masonry floor was shattered into a large hole with a diameter of more than 3 meters. The strong air waves mixed with dust spread, and countless gravels shot out. Master Earl, Master Angelus, Master Cross, are you all right? Quote. At this time, there were bursts of shouts from outside the bedroom door, and the solid oak door was smashed open, and 7 or 8 guards in half-body armor rushed in anxiously, holding long swords or muskets. But Cross ignored them, but walked quickly to the balcony and looked into the courtyard below. Sure enough, the guy who called himself Gold Medal Killer Ed Wintink limped and ran in the courtyard. What are you panicking? The killer has already fled outside. Cross yelled impatiently at the panicked guards, and then ignored them. Kanglang. Afterwards, he held the scabbard with his left hand, flicked his thumb upwards, and the samurai sword revealed a sharp blade, then held the handle wrapped with a blue string in his right hand, pulled out the scabbard suddenly, and slashed towards the sky below. Cut. One knife flow Fimang. The bright blade flashed across the air, and the sharp blade seemed to cut through the air, turning into a blue-white slash and flying out. Chapter 3 The King Summons. Advertisement. Nani. Hearing the strange sound of wind coming from behind, Wen Tink couldn't help but turned his head to look, only to find a huge slash attack. He was so frightened that he didn't care about the sharp pain in his shoulder, and quickly rolled to the side to avoid it. With a loud bang, the ground was torn apart, forming a deep crack almost across the entire courtyard, with an astonishing length of more than 10 meters. Master Cross, you are using too much force. In the courtyard of the villa, the servants screamed in unison. Cross turned a deaf ear to it, and when he saw that his stabbing failed, he immediately turned over and jumped off the balcony, like a heavy object falling to the ground, with a boom sound. He crushed more than a dozen pieces of the blue brick floor of the courtyard, forming the ground under his feet. There was a huge spider web of cracks. Strange monster. Wen Tink's face was terrified, and he completely lost his previous arrogant expression. He hurriedly got up from the ground, as if a monster was chasing him, and slammed into the outer wall of the courtyard without looking back. But the strange thing is that his body directly disappeared into the wall and disappeared into the courtyard. Ah, hell. This scene shocked the servants in the villa so much that their eyeballs popped out. They thought they saw a ghost, and they hugged their heads and screamed in terror. This ability to pass through walls, shouldn't it be Paramesh's piercing fruit? Cross squinted his eyes and guessed secretly, and a guy with a big head appeared in his mind. You know, he was also a Pirates fan in his previous life. Not only did he watch every episode, he even went to the cinema to support the movie version. It's just that it has been 15 years since he traveled through time, and the memory of his previous life is somewhat forgotten, and he needs to think carefully to recall it. If Ed Wintink is really capable of Paramesha wearing fruit, then it is no wonder that he arrogantly said that he is the gold medal killer of North Blue. He still vaguely remembers that the specific ability of piercing fruit is that it can pass through all non-living bodies, allowing the ability user to easily pass through barriers and sneak into heavily guarded places. Otherwise, this guy would not come here to kill people in a shiny silver suit. Don't look down on guards who defend. However, since you met me, let you die early. Eridar smiled lightly, then stepped several meters away in one step, jumped over the outer wall of the courtyard like the wind, and rushed into the woods outside without looking back. Since later, there was a big-headed doll with the ability to wear fruit, it means that this guy will die sooner or later. That being the case, then I'll give you another ride. At this moment, although Wen Tink in the woods had lost an arm, it was difficult for him to keep his balance due to his fast running, but he still stumbled and fled forward desperately. Advertisement. Because he knew that if he ran, he still had a chance to survive, but if he stopped, he would die. Splitting void. Suddenly, a slightly immature but majestic stern echoed in the woods. Wen Tink suddenly felt the cool wind blowing from behind, and the palpitations of the hairs made him couldn't help but look back, and then he saw a dazzling knife light blooming, turning into an unrivaled huge slash and falling. Oh, damn. Bang. The next moment, the ground suddenly split, forming a terrifying huge crack that traversed the entire forest and spread to the coast hundreds of meters away before stopping. However, the strong shaking did not stop, and the rising dust gradually spread. It's quiet. Cross made a listening posture, holding a samurai sword, and walked step by step to the side of the huge crack. After a while, dozens of guards of the amphitheater family ran over panting, and then they all stared dumbfounded at the devastated forest and the huge crack running through the entire forest. Ha, ha ha, it seems a little too hard. Cross scratched his head in embarrassment, and smiled awkwardly at his guards. Quote. The guards stared at Cross with speechless expressions, as if to say, this is not only a little force, it is obviously very forceful. The point is that this forest belongs to the territory of the amphitheater family, and it is Cross himself who suffers the loss. There are also later repairs. I don't know how much Bailey will spend to fill this huge crack and restore the entire forest to its original appearance. Master Earl. Suddenly, the old butler Henriel hurried over, and the black tuxedo on his body was covered with a lot of dust. Grandpa Henriel, is something wrong? Cross quickly put the katana back into its sheath, turned around and went up to him. His mother in this life was called Peng Sen Gloria, the daughter of a merchant, and died of an accidental illness not long after giving birth to him. So much so that his father, Amphitheater Holland, in this life thought that he was the chief culprit who killed his mother, Penson Gloria, and his physical talent was so good that he was born with a midwife, his fingers were broken, and his father, Mr. Hollanden, thought he was a monster, so he was not close to him at all. Advertisement. So from infancy, the old housekeeper Henriel took care of Cross until now. Just 7 years ago, at the beginning of the Great Pirate Era, before the pirate king Luogia was executed in Rog Town, he set off the Great Pirate Era with his own hands, causing his father to be robbed by pirates on the way home from a trip, and was killed when he resisted. Kill. So much so that he inherited the amphitheater family when he was 8 years old, and lived with the old housekeeper Henriel, and the two had a very deep relationship. Who? PH. Just now His Majesty the King. Henriel is 76 years old this year. He served the third-generation patriarch of the Angelus family. He trotted all the way over, making him a little out of breath. As soon as he opened his mouth to speak, he found the huge crack extending all the way to the coast behind Cross. He was so startled that he almost couldn't catch his breath, clutching his chest and about to fall backwards. Grandpa Henriel, Cross, complexion changed, and he quickly stepped forward to support the old butler, caressed the other's chest, and said loudly, breathe, take a deep breath. Butler Henry, my lord, quote. A group of guards of the amphitheater family also turned pale with fright, and quickly surrounded them. Suddenly, Henriel, who was rolling his eyes, suddenly turned his face straight, and he returned to normal. He slowly stood up, broke free from Cross's support, and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha, you've been cheated. I'm fine. Ha 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 ha. Here we go again. The guards all rolled their eyes. Henriel. Cross blushed and yelled angrily, haven't you heard the story of the wolf coming? I won't care about your life next time. After lying to everyone like an old urchin, Henriel straightened his collar in the face of Cross's outrage, and said with a smile, Little Cross, you are a distinguished nobleman, it's really a shame to make such a big commotion. It's a loss of identity. TCH. Cross curled his lips in displeasure, and said, the older you get, the more verbose you are. At this time, the old butler Henriel's face straightened, and he said in a deep voice, by the way, His Majesty the King sent someone to deliver a letter asking you to go to the palace, saying that there is something important to discuss. Are you kidding me? Cross was at a loss, and said puzzledly, I'm just a 15-year-old kid, what important matters do you need to discuss with me? Chapter 4 The King's Commission. Advertisement. The royal palace and castle of the Kingdom of Tobias is located on the top of a mountain a few kilometers away from the coast. It is a castle made of stone. It is not gorgeous, but it is extremely strong and majestic. There are several heavy front-loading cannons on the city tower and the arrow tower, and soldiers of the palace guards can be seen everywhere, which can be described as heavily guarded. Your Majesty, Earl Amphitheater Cross has arrived. In the palace hall, a guard knelt on one knee and lowered his head to report to the king on the throne in front of him. Cross stepped forward with a calm expression, and walked into the slightly empty palace hall unhurriedly. The sight was very simple, except for the various weapons and armors placed on the weapon racks on both sides, there were not many other things. Ornate decoration. Good day, Your Majesty the King. When he was about 4 or 5 meters away from the king, Cross stopped, put his right hand on his left chest, bowed slightly to the king in front of him, and gave a chest salute. And on the stone throne, sat an old man with white hair and beard wearing a golden crown. He was looking at the young Cross with a smile, and said gently, it's just in time, I'll be waiting for you. He is the 19th king of the Kingdom of Tobias, Harwich Usapaka, also known as Harwich 19. Cross straightened his body, looked at the two people standing in front of the throne, and greeted with a smile, Master Salin. General Humir. Good day. One of them had a long face, dead fish eyes, long white curly hair, and a tall and thin man said calmly, My lord, good day. This person's name is Timur Salin, and he is the minister of the kingdom of Tobias, in charge of civil affairs. Good day, Earl Cross. Another strong man with dark brown skin also greeted in a deep voice. He has a scarred face, a black forehead band and a white turban on his head. He is the general in charge of the army, and his name is Hanks Hummel. Afterwards, King Harwich, who was sitting on the throne, laughed and said, You must have doubts about bringing Earl Cross over today. Advertisement. I'm really confused, especially seeing His Majesty the King, Lord Salin, and General Humir are all there. It seems that there is something important. Cross nodded. The kingdom of Tobias is just a small country with a small island, with a population of more than 200,000 people and an army of 3,000 people. It is also divided into the kingdom army and the guards guarding the kingdom castle. The main buildings of the city are all on the coast below the mountain, with ports and docks, and the houses are from bottom to top, all the way to the palace and castle on the top of the mountain. As for the other side of the mountain, there are only a few scattered villages and some small mines of iron, copper, coal, etc., as well as some noble manors and villas. But the government affairs of a country with more than 200,000 people are not an easy task. If it is not an important matter, it is impossible for the highest level of the kingdom to gather together and wait for him to come. It's not a big deal, I just need the help of Earl Cross. Harwich 19 said with a smile. Your Majesty the King is very polite, please give me your instructions. Cross said. Not long ago, the kingdom just raised a huge sum of 300 million baileys to purchase a batch of muskets and cannons to equip the kingdom's army. King Harwich said in a deep voice. Not long ago, Sauron contacted the underground arms dealer bought 300 million baileys from the other party, so I want Earl Cross to accompany General Humil to ensure the safety of this transaction. Even if the transaction fails, the 300 million baileys must bring it back. Equipping more muskets and cannons to the kingdom's army is the right thing to do. I'm very happy to take this trip. Cross agreed without hesitation. Although the king of Harwich 19th is not a wise king, he is also a benevolent king. He is good to the people and himself. Even his title of Earl is a gift from the other party. What's more, for a poor and small country like the kingdom of Tobias, 300 million baileys money is indeed a lot of money. It's no wonder that His Majesty the King specially invited him here. Relying on your strength in the past 2 years, you have helped the kingdom to stop many pirates from invading, but we can't put the safety of the kingdom on the shoulders of you, an underage child. I'm ashamed, Harwich 19 said with a bit of ridicule. Your Majesty, as a member of the kingdom of Tobias, I'm just doing my part. Cross shook his head and said in a calm tone. Alas, you also know that ever since that damned pirate King Luogia set off the so-called era of great pirates, the number of pirates in North Blue has skyrocketed, causing the kingdom to be harassed by pirates from time to time, and businesses and people's livelihood have plummeted, but the kingdom is peaceful. It has been a long time since the armaments have been slack, coupled with the sharp drop in taxes, the kingdom does not have enough money to equip the army with sophisticated weapons, and the firepower is not even as good as that of the pirates. Harwich 19 expressed resentment, and then said very ashamed. If it is said that the pirates' harassment is due to external reasons, then the kingdom's military is slack and unable to protect the common people from the pirates' attacks, then it is his fault as a king. Your Majesty, it's not your fault. General Humir quickly comforted him, if it wasn't for the gold in the sky. Advertisement. To shut up. Harwich 19's face changed slightly, and he suddenly interrupted the other party's next words. Sorry, I made a mistake. General Humil woke up suddenly and shut his mouth quickly. It's said that the kingdom was able to raise a huge sum of 300 million baileys this time, and most of the credit is due to Earl Cross. Minister Salin changed the subject, with a smile on his expressionless face, and said, After all, Earl Cross defeated 11 pirate groups in the past 2 years and seized a lot of pirate property. In addition, the kingdom gradually stabilized and taxes began to recover. Only then did the kingdom accumulate more money in 2 years. A huge sum of 300 million baileys. Master Salin is too polite. Cross smiled indifferently, thoughtful. Although he only listened to half of it, he understood that the kingdom of Tobias is just a small and poor country, and Harwich 19 is unwilling to increase the burden on the people, so the annual tax is not only a part of the gold from the sky, the remaining money can only be used for domestic expenditure and to maintain a small army. In other words, before the beginning of the Great Pirate Era, the kingdom of Tobias was relatively peaceful, and the existing army could fully cope with the invasion of foreign enemies. There was no need to maintain a large army and purchase or manufacture more sophisticated weapons. Unnecessarily heavy burdens on the kingdom. It's just that the high-level officials of the kingdom didn't expect that the words of the one-piece King Luogia before his death actually opened up an era of great pirates, causing countless people to rush to the sea and become pirates who did all kinds of evil, and the result was that the kingdom of Tobias was destroyed. It can only be difficult to resist the repeated harassment of one pirate group after another, not to mention the rapid drop in taxes, and the extra money can only barely appease the people in the country. After all, the royal family and nobles lived in strong castles, so they didn't have to worry about their own safety. But the common people live in the port cities along the coast, and every time the pirates attack, there will be casualties among the common people. So, if the king and the nobles can't use money to appease the dead and injured people, then the next time the pirates attack again, I'm afraid even the kingdom's army will mutiny. Therefore, This caused the kingdom's finances to fall into a deadlock, with a continuous cycle, and it was completely impossible to accumulate enough money to buy high-quality arms with a lot of money. Unless the kingdom of Tobias gives up its status as a member country of the world government, and no longer provides half of the taxes as gold from the sky to the celestial dragons, but in that case, it is undoubtedly provoking the celestial dragons of the world government and world nobility. Such consequences are 10 times, or 100 times more serious than being harassed by pirates. Chapter 5 Pirates. Advertisement. There are people coming and going in the bustling port, and the pier is also bustling with noise. More than a dozen large and small sailboats are docked at the berths of the pier, and workers are constantly moving goods from merchant ships to the shore. Since entering the era of great pirates, pirate ships have been rampant everywhere on the sea, causing business in North Blue to plummet. Except for some big countries and places with marine stationed, it is difficult to see such a prosperous place. The taste of peace is so good. Standing on the long wooden embankment of the pier, Fabian stretched his body with outstretched arms, then rubbed his long and thin yellow face, and tidied up his somewhat messy brown captain's coat, looking at it with emotion. The bustling port in front of you. As a member of the Baker Chamber of Commerce and the captain of the new Reed, this is the third time he has come to the kingdom of Tobias, and every time he comes, he will find that the place will be more prosperous. Mr. Fabian, is this the kingdom of Tobias? It's so prosperous. At this time, some young sailors ran down from a large sailing ship, looking curiously at the pier in front of them and the port buildings in the distance. That's right, this is the kingdom of Tobias, a rare peaceful place in North Blue. Fabian nodded and said with a smile on his face, "Okay, let's move all the goods down first, and then I will give them to you. Take 2 days off and relax." "Oh, long live Monsieur Fabian. Great, I'm already tired of those watery rums." Quote. The young sailors cheered in unison, and returned to the galleon in a swarm. Ha 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 ha, what a bustling place. Not far away, on a large caravel with a red maple leaf flag flying on the main mast, a thin man with a scar on his forehead led dozens of people off the ship, and then took a group of people from the subordinates behind him. A black coat embroidered with gold thread was draped over his body, and he laughed and looked at the bustling port in front of him, with greed in his eyes. At this time, the port tax officer on the pier and several soldiers in half armor, holding long swords and muskets came forward. "I need to inspect your ship, and then collect taxes according to the quantity and value of the goods." The tax officer held a notebook and a quill, looking at the dozens of men with fierce faces and strong muscles in front of him, pointing to the various weapons in their hands. He said, "Swords and muskets in their hands are not allowed to be brought ashore, nor are they allowed to make trouble in the port, otherwise it will violate." Long-winded, it's annoying to death. Facing the chattering tax officer, the man with the scar on his forehead took out a flintlock pistol from his waist impatiently, and pulled the trigger directly at the tax officer. Boom. Advertisement. Accompanied by the muffled gunshot, the dark muzzle of the gun burst into flames, and a lead bullet escaped from the chamber very quickly, hitting the tax official's thigh. Ah! The tax officer fell heavily to the ground, clutching his bleeding right leg, and let out screams. What are you doing? You be ********D, you are courting death. Quote. Several soldiers turned pale with fright, one of them quickly backed the tax official who had been shot on the ground, and the others raised their weapons one after another, preparing to fight back. "It's so noisy, shut up." The man with the scar on his forehead scolded angrily, and vigorously waved the flintlock pistol in his hand, as if he was threatening. Immediately, dozens of people behind him swarmed up, took out muskets, machetes, and axes, and surrounded several soldiers and the tax official who had been shot. At the same time, hundreds of people appeared on the deck of the large caravel sailing ship. All of them were dark-skinned and muscular, and all of them were holding long knives, hatchets, muskets and other weapons, staring at the pier covetously. People on. Lousy is the captain of the Yonic pirates, and there is a reward of 28 million berries for Yonic. At this moment, the pirate Yonic could no longer restrain his greed, and shouted fiercely to the people around him, "Now I declare that I will take over this city." Hiss, it's that vicious dog, Yonic. It can't be wrong, I have seen his arrest warrant. It turned out to be that despicable guy who likes to pretend to be a merchant ship and launch a surprise attack after waiting to enter the port. Quote. The original gunshots alarmed the people on the pier, but now the shooter claimed to be a pirate, or a big pirate with a bounty of 28 million Baileys, which really caused panic among many people. However, there were more people not only did not show fear, but the old god often sat down, looking at the pirate in front of him as if watching a play. Run away, Fabian first. Hey, why don't you run away? Advertisement. The young sailors of the Baker Chamber of Commerce were terrified, and they were about to drag Fabian beside him to escape, but just as they stretched out their hands, they found that the people around them did not scream at all, which made them feel surprised. Don't be afraid, it's your first time here, so you don't know. The reason why the kingdom of Tobias is so prosperous is because there is a legendary figure here. Sit and watch the show with peace of mind. Fabian waved his hand, comforted these young people. A character who can be called a legend. Several young people looked at each other, a little confused. At this time, someone next to him said proudly, "That's right, with the pride of our Tobias kingdom, Lord Amphitheater Cross is here, and mere pirates can't turn the world around. When they want to grab something later, let them grab it. It won't be long before they can get it back." When he said the next few words, the proud expression on the man's face turned into a sneer. On the other side, vicious dog, Yonic looked mad and said loudly, Little ones, raise the flag and push out the cannons. Whoever dares to resist, I will turn this city into a sea of flames. No problem, Captain, a pirate responded with a grin. Subsequently, the red maple leaf flag hoisted on the main mast of the pirate ship, which was disguised as a merchant ship, was replaced with the black skull flag of the pirate. At the same time, the gun window baffles on both sides of the pirate ship were also raised, the artillery inside was pushed forward, and thick metal barrels protruded from the gun window, pointing the muzzle of the black hole to the two sides. Side-size sailboat. Even the deck was crowded with people, it seemed that there were no less than 100 people. Looking at the quiet harbor wharf, no one resisted. Vicious dog. Yannick nodded in satisfaction, waved the flintlock pistol in his hand, and said loudly, "Little ones, go and grab all the valuable things back." Quote. "Oh, the robbery is on. Brothers, go. Long live Captain Yornock." Quote. Quote. The next second, cheers burst forth. In addition to the guards and gunners on the pirate ship, more than 150 pirates rushed down from the ship, ready to start robbing wantonly. Chapter 6 The Pride of the Kingdom of Tobias. Advertisement. Laugh. Bang. Suddenly, there seemed to be a flash of light in the air, swept by with a strong wind. Then the people on the pier were surprised to find that the main mast on the pirate ship, which was more than 30 meters long, broke inexplicably, and fell downwards, breaking dozens of cables, and smashed heavily on the deck at the stern. There was a loud bang, and the thick wooden deck was smashed through by the extremely heavy half of the main mast, causing serious damage, and many pieces of wood were splashed into the sea or on the pier. Especially inside the hull of this pirate group, the pirate gunners on the first artillery deck were smashed to death by the sudden main mast above their heads, and several of them were smashed even with the artillery. What happened? Why did the mainmast break? My legs ah. Quote. Quote. The originally excited pirates seemed to have been doused with a basin of cold water. They panicked on the spot, and there were bursts of screams from the pirate ship. What's the situation? Yannick the vicious dog asked the subordinates on the pirate ship angrily, go and see the main mast quickly, why is it broken? After a while, a hesitant voice came from the pirate ship. Captain Kubi, the crack of the mainmast is so smooth, it seems to be. By what? Vicious dog? Yannick asked impatiently. Like being cut off by a sharp knife. Cut off with a sharp blade. Are you kidding me? Vicious dog. Yannick roared at the men on the ship angrily. Did you cut it off? You pirates are really annoying like bugs. At this time, a slightly immature voice sounded in the ears of many people, causing everyone's eyes to look towards the source of the voice. On the street, the crowded crowd parted, and a silver-haired boy came with a knife, surrounded by awe-inspiring and invisible momentum, followed by the kingdom's general Humir and dozens of palace guards. Advertisement. Master Cross. Master Earl. Great. Earl Amphitheater is here. Quote. Quote. The people on the pier cheered and looked at the coming boy with great admiration. Sir, is this the legendary person you mentioned? The young man from outside showed a strange face and his tone was full of doubts, and said, although he is tall, his immature face is clearly a future-grown boy. That's right, it's a rare opportunity to see Lord Cross make a move again. Kaku said loudly with an excited expression on his face. Afterwards, Kakis looked at the expressions of disbelief on the faces of the young people he brought, and introduced carefully. Don't underestimate Mr. Cross, he is the legend of Tobias Kingdom, Angli Earl of Cross, the most powerful man in the kingdom of Tobias. You know, Earl Angelus Cross broke off his nurse's fingers when he was just born. Then he broke rocks with his bare hands at the age of 3. He was able to hunt giant tigers at the age of 5. He learned swordsmanship at the age of 8. Within half a year mastered all the moves of this genre. Defeated the swordsmanship teacher when he was 10 years old. He was abducted by human traffickers when he was 12 years old, and he angrily interrupted the hands and feet of 37 people in the entire slave gang, and threw them into the sea to feed the fish. When I was 13 years old, I even defeated a pirate group that came to attack the port. In the next 2 years, I defeated 11 pirate groups that came to attack in a row, making Tobias Kingdom the most one of the safe kingdoms. Such an exaggerated description made several young people dumbfounded and even more disbelieving. Doesn't this mean that he is only 15 years old? Just kidding, how can there be such a person in the world? Sir, even if you want to brag, it's too exaggerated. Yes, according to your words, it is clearly a monster. Quote. Quote. They saw that it was not human beings who could do the above things, but monsters. The middle-aged businessman didn't care. Instead he said with a smile, it doesn't matter if you don't believe it. Anyway, you will see Earl Cross make a move soon, and you will believe it when the time comes. Soon, Cross walked to the pier, looked at the huge pirate ship in front of him, and said dissatisfiedly to Humir behind him, have all the warships of the kingdom sunk into the sea? It's really too much to put all the pirates in. Dereliction of duty. I'm so sorry. Humir bowed his head and admitted his mistake with an ugly face. The kingdom of Tobias has its own warships and sailors, not many in number. There are also 3 4-level sail cruisers and 400 sailors, which are usually used to patrol nearby sea areas to prevent pirates from raiding. Advertisement. It's just that this time, the kingdom did not receive any warning, and the pirates rushed into the port directly, ready to rob wantonly. It was indeed the negligence of the kingdom's army. And with the arrival of Cross, the people on the port and the pier gathered together as if they had a backbone, holding wrenches, crowbars, water pipes, harpoons and other weapons in their hands, standing aggressively on the embankment, staring at the members of the Yannick pirates. Hundreds of thousands of people formed a dark crowd, and the number of people was even increasing, making York the vicious dog, and the pirates under his command look at the scene in front of them, and they were dumbfounded on the spot. What's the situation with this TM? Is it because of this brat? Do you know who he is? Soon, vicious dog, Yannick came back to his senses, stared at the oncoming Cross, muttered something in his heart, and then turned around and asked. Captain, I heard that there is a very strong guy in the kingdom of Tobias who defeated 11 pirate groups in a row in 2 years. Could it be this brat? At this time, a pirate came to about behind Nock, said in a low voice. Yannick squinted his eyes slightly, and after listening to his subordinates, his gaze involuntarily moved to the samurai sword in Cross's hand, and he suddenly grinned and said, ha 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 ha, you cut off the main mast on my ship, right? Have some eyesight. Cross smiled lightly and said, tell me, how many pieces do you want to be chopped into? After finishing speaking, he pointed the long knife in his hand at the other party, causing Yannick's smiling face to froze, and he could not help swallowing. Gulu. Ha, ha ha. Yannick smiled and said, misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Since you don't say it yourself, then I'll help you decide. Cross grinned and said jokingly, how about breaking it into pieces? York's face changed slightly, his heart tightened, and he quickly shouted, 10 million Baileys. Master Swordsman, I am willing to exchange my life with 10 million Baileys. What? Cross looked confused, and said strangely, if I kill you, I can also get your property. Also, you can exchange your head for a bounty. The last sentence was full of embarrassment. How much is your head worth? Chapter 7 Devil Fruit. Advertisement. B********** D brat. With a ferocious expression on his face, Jonock suddenly pulled out another flintlock pistol from his waist, and pulled the trigger at Cross who was almost close at hand. However, at the same time, Cross seemed to know about Yannick's movements, stepped forward in an instant, and swung the samurai sword in his hand. Ding! A bright knife light suddenly appeared, causing the people around to squint their eyes. Immediately, of course, after people regained their eyesight, the flintlock pistol in Jonock's hand was cut into 2 pieces, and the first half fell to the ground. Can't shoot lead bullets. It's really like a dog. If you say you change your face, you will change your face. Cross said with a look of disgust. Hateful. Frightened, Jonock quickly dropped the flintlock pistol with only one handle left in his hand, and roared loudly, brothers, kill them if you want to survive. Shoot, shoot. This is North Blue, not the backward East Blue, so he understands that what a powerful swordsman can do to cut off the main mast of a ship in the air. Bang, bang, bang. The pirates on the pier woke up one after another, and hurriedly raised their muskets to shoot forward, or raised their scimitars, hatchets and other weapons to rush towards Cross. At the same time, on the pirate ship, the pirates who were in chaos because of the main mast toppled over got busy one after another. The gunner was in place, and the assistant gunner picked up the torch or took out the fire pocket, and it was necessary to load the projectiles and gunpowder in advance. Cannon lights matchlock, because the pirates also understand that the main mast of their pirate ship has been broken, and the ship cannot start. They can only fight desperately to have hope of survival. Otherwise, when a large number of troops arrive, hundreds of them will die. I can't go away. Get out of the way. One knife flow shocking wave. Cross squinted his eyes, impatiently swiped the long knife, and suddenly set off a violent wind pressure visible to the naked eye, blowing away the flying lead bullets and throwing axes, as well as the pirates in front of him. Ah, how is this going? Help me. Quote. The screams sounded one after another, and dozens of pirates were scattered by the violent wind, and most of them fell into the sea. Afterwards, Crow looked at the pirate ship of the Yannick pirates, and said in a concentrated voice, you actually have more than a dozen cannons, I can't give you a chance to fire them. One knife flow Fimang. Advertisement. As soon as the words fell, he brazenly raised his arm and slashed across the air. Laugh. Bang. The blue and white sword waves bloomed, and a strong wind was set off out of thin air, like a hot knife cutting butter, instantly cutting the large caravel sailing ship neatly. Split. Around, countless people opened their mouths wide in horror, and even their eyeballs popped out in shock. Swinging a knife in the air, actually split a caravel sailboat with a length of more than 50 meters in half from the beginning to the end. Is this still something that humans can do? Ordinary people have never seen the world, so they will naturally be shocked by the scene in front of them. The pirate ship that turned into 2 halves sank, gulu gulu, and the surviving pirates jumped off the boat in horror and frantically swam towards the shore. You be ******************, you ruined my dream of being one piece. Yannick roared like weeping, picked up a pirate scimitar from the ground, and rushed towards Cross crazily. The cry of a defeated dog. Cross snorted softly, retracted the long knife in his hand to the scabbard, then held the scabbard with his left hand and the handle with his right hand, making a gesture of drawing the knife. Kanglang. In an instant, the rubbing sound of the long knife being unsheathed echoed in everyone's ears, and everyone felt a blur in front of their eyes. Cross exchanged positions with Jonock like lightning, and slowly put the knife back into the sheath. Cross turned and sheathed the last blade. Jahei Moro Zan. Who? Yannick's complexion changed. He lowered his head in disbelief, a huge scar split open on his chest, and a large stream of blood gushed out like a fountain. After a while, Yannick wanted to say something, but couldn't say it, he could only kneel down on the ground weakly, and completely lost his breath. I leave it to you, let's wash the floor. Cross said indifferently. After losing the captain and the pirate ship, the surviving pirates completely lost their will to fight and surrendered on their knees. They were then controlled by the soldiers of the royal army who hurried over and escorted to prison. Advertisement. At the same time, General Humir also organized manpower to salvage the sunken pirate ship. After all, the pirates' treasure and more than a dozen cannons are also a considerable fortune. Of course, as Cross's spoils of war, he will not take the property alone, but will give half of it to the kingdom of Tobias. As for the artillery, it is useless for him to ask for it, and he will give it to General Humir for management, the royal army. As for the head of the vicious dog, Yannick, it will be sent to the nearest marine base by the officials of the kingdom to exchange for the bounty, and the Cross and the kingdom will also get half and half points. To be honest, if Cross is willing, these properties will belong to him alone, but he is not short of money now, and he can't spend too much money, so it's better to give it to the kingdom, and let the king thank him. After a busy half a day, the royal army finally salvaged the belongings of the Yannick pirates and cleared the blocked shipping route caused by the sinking ship. Soon, a sailing warship entered the port, and Cross and General Hummel brought dozens of guard soldiers and a huge sum of 300 million baileys to board the ship. Because next, the ship will send them to an overseas island to conduct an arms deal with an underground arms dealer. Earl Cross, look what good things our people have found. In the captain's cabin, Cross was packing his luggage when he suddenly heard General Hummel's excited voice from behind. Cross turned his head and saw General Hummel holding a red gold-plated treasure chest, walking quickly into the captain's room, opening the treasure chest to Cross with an excited expression. This is. Immediately, Cross' face changed slightly, and he subconsciously took 2 steps forward, staring at the things in the treasure chest. All I saw was a strange-looking green-skinned fruit lying quietly in the treasure chest, covered with spiral patterns of Arabica-like, shaped like a pear. That's right, it's actually the legendary devil fruit. General Humir said happily, this is a sea-secret treasure with a market value of at least 100 million baileys. If you sell it, you can buy more. Give me. Cross directly interrupted General Humir, and looked at him seriously. General Hummel was taken aback for a moment, then he came to his senses and asked in surprise, Earl Cross, don't you want to eat it? Maybe, it's possible. Cross stared at the devil fruit and muttered to himself. General Humir hesitated for a second, then passed the treasure box in his hand to Cross, and persuaded him. You have to think carefully, if you eat devil fruit, you will be rejected by the sea in the future, and you will never be able to swim for the rest of your life. Chapter 8 Listening. Advertisement. On the endless sea, the third-class sailing warship of the Kingdom of Tobias sailed on the sea. A row of seabirds were parked on the white sails, as if they were using the boats under their feet as land for rest. 1-2. Use force. 1-2. Use force. Quote. The sailors from the Royal Army were chanting, tying cables on the deck, and adjusting the huge sails to adapt to the current wind force and direction. In the dark captain's room, Cross sat at the table, staring blankly at the devil fruit in the treasure chest in front of him, and kept muttering, should I eat it or not? To be honest, he is very conflicted, because he has not considered whether to eat this devil fruit or not. He hadn't read the devil fruit illustrated book, so he couldn't recognize what kind of ability the devil fruit in front of him had. Logia, Paramesha, Zone. If Logia is the best, even marsh fruit is not bad, but the chances are too small. Paramesha is the most likely, but if it encounters some garbage ability, such as Dudu fruit, Lunlin fruit, etc., it will be too miserable. As for Zone, if it weren't for the ancient species and the phantom beast species, he really wouldn't have the slightest desire to eat. So, it's a gamble in opening the blind box. Or save it for later, after reading the devil fruit illustrated book, before making a decision, or looking for a better devil fruit in the future. For example, to rob Doflamingo and snatch the golden fruit before Tezzolo is quite good. Or the op fruit that will appear in North Blue in a few years, you can also find a way to cut it in advance. However, after thinking about it for a while, Cross gave up his idea. First of all, there are still many years before the golden fruit appears, and entering this world indiscriminately will inevitably cause a butterfly effect, resulting in fluctuations in the original timeline. Who knows that after waiting for so many years, whether the golden fruit will appear accurately and be obtained by Doflamingo smoothly is a very big question mark. As for the op fruit that will appear in a few years, it will involve Marine, World Government, and Don Quixote family. He wants to extract chestnuts from the fire, and the difficulty factor is too high. Unless he takes the first step and kills Dies Barreros before Corazon, Don Quixote Rocinante, then he can get the op fruit. But there is another problem. The sea is vast and there is not enough information support. How can he get the news of op fruit accurately, and take the op fruit smoothly before the arrival of many forces? Advertisement. Especially once I was blocked by the Don Quixote family, would it be possible for me to single out the entire Don Quixote family alone? Moreover, he had to defeat Doflamingo, otherwise he would not be able to escape from the opponent's birdcage. Therefore, the former is uncertain, and the latter is too dangerous, neither is a good choice. The brain returned to reality, and Cross continued to stare at the devil fruit in the treasure chest in front of him, then reached out to pick it up, and played percent for a while, repeatedly weighing and tangling in his heart. In the end, like a ghost, Cross suddenly put the devil fruit in his hand to his mouth, and gnawed on it with a click. Well, in the next second, a disgusting taste filled his mouth, causing Cross to wake up suddenly, and almost spat out the pulp in his mouth. Fortunately, he was still rational, and he tightly covered his mouth to prevent himself from spitting it out. Now that I have eaten it, it would be a waste to spit it out, so I might as well take a gamble. Afterwards, Cross suppressed the nausea and ate the whole big green pear like a jujube. Although it was said that devil fruit only needs to eat one bite to gain power, but he was worried, or because of obsessive-compulsive disorder, so he ate this unknown devil fruit whole, not even the skin left. Vomit. But after eating this devil fruit, Cross couldn't bear it anymore, and lay down on the ground and retched. It's so damn unpalatable. It's worse than shit, it seems to have exposed something, vomit. A sea area in North Blue. A huge warship is sailing in the endless sea, with a big crane character written on the sail, and the Justice Seagull flag is hung high on the main mast. Obviously, this is a marine warship. In the captain's room, a group of female sailors gathered around the table, listening to the rustling sound of the black phone bug in front of them. Among them, a gray-haired female sailor is the most conspicuous. As an old man in her 60s, she doesn't look old. She has gray hair and a simple ponytail to her shoulders. Her hair is all combed behind her head, leaving her forehead. She wears a pair of golden bead earrings on her ears. He wears gloves, a marine vice admiral coat, a red shirt, and a dark red tie with white polka dots. The lower percent was wearing suit pants and leather shoes, and sat on the chair with a calm expression. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, and the Great Staff, Crane. Advertisement. Dover, our people are dead and our goods have been robbed. Suddenly, a voice came from the phone bug. Crane, big sister, I have overheard the call of the Don Quixote pirates. A yellow-haired female soldier said hastily, her expression brightened. Quiet, listen. Crane waved his hand and said softly. Are you kidding, Diamante? What the hell did that? It's Onik the grizzly bear, the munitions worth 300 million Baileys, the munitions we are going to trade with the kingdom of Tobias. Foo, that guy really dares to do it. Dover, that guy is still in the kingdom of Lney, and it seems that he is going to trade our arms with the kingdom of Tobias. Using our arms to trade with the kingdom of Tobias. This guy Onik did a great job. Foo, it made me laugh out loud, UB ******** D. Dover, what should we do, are we going to kill him? Diamante, go to Lney Kingdom and wait for me, foo, I'm going to skin him alive. Click. The next second, the black phone bug closed his eyes and fell asleep. The Kingdom of Lney. I remember it seems to be the country where the big talker Rolando lives. Crane raised his head and looked at the nautical chart hanging on the opposite wall. Immediately, a young female sailor with chrysanthemum red hair ran to the nautical chart and gestured on it with both hands. After a while, the female sea soldier turned her head, pointed to a spot on the nautical chart and said, Crane, big sister, it's about 4 days voyage away from us, do you want to go? On the other side, there were other female sailors flipping through the thick stack of reward orders in their hands, and then took one out of it and put it on the table, introducing. Storm Bear Cordell Onik, the reward is 68 million Baileys, is a famous pirate last year, famous for attacking the warships of the 105th branch of the North Blue, and has cut off business routes many times. Crane was silent for a while, then suddenly stood up, and said in a deep voice, change, let's go to Lney Kingdom. Yes. Immediately, all the female sailors in the room stood up straight and responded loudly. Chapter 9 Lney Kingdom. Advertisement. 3 days later, the Kingdom of Lney. The battleship Harwich 19 slowly entered the crescent-shaped bay port. Cross stood on the bow deck and saw tall and solid turrets erected on the top of the cliffs on both sides in the distance. The swarthy barrel sticks out. At the same time, the passing ships in the bay seemed to be competing with each other. There were merchant ships, tourist ships, and warships. The groups of white sails were so spectacular that even General Hummel was shocked by it. This is a big country. General Hummel sighed. Oh, is this country very big? Cross asked suspiciously. Of course, the Kingdom of Lney is the leading power in North Blue, and its military strength is so strong that it doesn't even need Marines garrison. General Hummel explained. The Kingdom of Lney, this country sounds familiar. Cross rubbed his chin, constantly recalling where he had heard the name of this country before. As a North Blue person, if you haven't heard of the Kingdom of Lney, then you must have read the fairy tale book Rolando the Big Tail. General Hummel said. You mean, the country where Rolando the Big Tail is located is the Kingdom of Lney. Cross suddenly remembered that he had read the fairy tale book, Rolando the Big Tail, when he was a child, in which it was mentioned that Rolando was the ruble people of the Kingdom of Ney. However, Cross knows that although Rolando is a fairy tale adapted from real people and considered a joke by countless people, there is a big discrepancy between the story and the reality. In particular, the golden country that Rolando mentioned is a real place, and it is not a lie at all. However, the Gaia Island where the Golden Village is located is not as Rolando speculated before his death, because it sank into the seabed due to plate movement, and was washed to the bye-bye sea in the sky by the upwelling current, and became Sky Island. That's right, although the book, Rolando the Liar, makes the Lney Kingdom a joke of North Blue, the strength of the Lney Kingdom cannot be underestimated by anyone. General Hummel said seriously. After all, this is what about a country with millions of people and 200,000 troops. It's so powerful. Immediately, Cross's eyes widened, with an expression of disbelief. Then, he realized that 400 years ago, the king of the Kingdom of Lney organized a fleet in order to find the golden land mentioned by Wendella Rolando. Under the leadership of Wendella Rolando, all the way from North Blue to Gaia Island in the first half of the Grand Line, it can be seen that the military strength of the Kingdom of Lney was strong at that time. If it weren't for the confidence in the strength of his own kingdom, how could a majestic king dare to travel across the ocean and go to the Grand Line to find some golden land? Suddenly, in a port crowded with ships, General Hummel found an empty ship berth, quickly pointed in that direction, and said, "Earl Cross, the ship can park there." Clear. Advertisement. Cross nodded, then reached out and patted the wooden guardrail. In the next second, the sailors gathered on the deck didn't even control the rudder and sails, and the huge battleship turned automatically and sailed towards the berth. Not long after, the battleship entered the berth and stopped, the huge iron anchor was automatically lowered, the cables on the mast were automatically untied, and the huge white sails were automatically rolled up, as if the ship was alive. It's so convenient. Amazing. In this case, we don't need to be busy in the future. Quote. On the battleship, the sailors gathered on the deck couldn't help being amazed at the scene in front of them. Only General Humir looked at this scene with a complicated expression, and said with a wry smile, "It seems that you can go to sea by yourself in the future." Ha 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 ha. Cross laughed loudly and said, "Although it's not particularly powerful, it's very convenient." Afterwards, Cross jumped off the sailing warship nearly 20 meters high, jumped onto the long wooden embankment of the pier, and scanned the bustling port in front of him with more interest. He has been in this world for 15 years and this is the first time he has visited other islands and countries. Moreover, compared to the kingdom of Tobias, the port of the kingdom of Lney is obviously more prosperous. There are sailors or coolies carrying goods everywhere, and there are not a few merchants in bright clothes and nobles who come to play. You must know that the kingdom of Lney is located on a large island, with a port, 7 cities, and dozens of villages. The territory is very large, and the military power is strong. Ordinary pirates dare not come and harass them. Naturally, it will cause many the businessman comes. At this moment, General Humil on the sailing warship also put down the boards, led a dozen soldiers in uniform, and walked across with 3 suitcases. What's next? Cross asked. If Earl Cross feels tired, we'll find a hotel to rest for a day and contact you tomorrow. General Humil said. The deal is up to General Humil, and I'm in high spirits. Cross said with a smile. To be honest, I don't know why this body's talent is too strong. He didn't get seasick when he went to sea for the first time, but he was very adaptable to life at sea. The only thing he didn't like was the mediocre food. Advertisement. Since that's the case, then I'll start contacting the other party, complete the transaction first, and then take a good rest and spend a few days in the kingdom of Lney. General Humil said directly. No problem, let's get things done first and then talk about other things. Cross nodded, agreeing with General Humil's approach. Afterwards, General Humil communicated with the port tax officer who came to collect taxes, and after sending him away, he began to contact the underground arms dealer. The phone bug rang for a while, then it was connected, and a strange laugh came out. Hoon ha 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 ha, are you here? Yes, we have arrived in Lney Kingdom, you can trade as you like, tell me the time and place. Kun ha 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 ha, I like direct people. At 3% in the afternoon, go to the east outside the city, there is a coconut grove, and there is a red brick warehouse there. No problem, I'll be there on time. Then I'll wait for you to come, kunahaha. Click. The phone bug hangs up. At this time, Humil looked at the sleeping phone bug in his hand with a tangled expression, and couldn't help but scratched his scalp. What's wrong? Cross asked strangely. The person who talked to us a few times ago doesn't seem to be the guy just now. General Humil said hesitantly. Hearing this, Cross frowned slightly, and thought about it. Maybe, it's just a new person in charge. After all, there is no problem with the phone bug, and the other party knows that you will come to trade. Humir nodded, still worried and said, in short, if we go to trade in the afternoon, our safety will be troublesome to Earl Cross. Don't worry, I'll leave everything to you. Cross had a confident smile on his face, and rubbed his left hand on the handle of the samurai sword at his waist. Chapter 10 The Descendants of the Liar King Rolando. Advertisement. Fried cod pieces, only 20 Baileys. Fresh mangosteen, buy some and go back and taste it. The latest, Rolando biography, the content is very exciting, do you want to see it? The black fish that was just salvaged from the river, as well as swimming crabs, hammer shrimp and various shellfish, let's take a look. Quote. The bustling streets are crowded with people, the streets paved with gravel and cobblestones are full of dirty water, debris is littered, and the houses on both sides are generally dilapidated. The highest floor is only the 3rd floor. It looks very chaotic, with all kinds of noisy people. The sound of selling is almost in my ears. As soon as Cross glanced, there was a lot of voices in front of him, there were hawkers calling out for business, passers-by in a hurry, and workers delivering goods, even buying small X-books. Some people even cheated on the street, selling him some nautical charts to go to the Golden Land, guaranteeing to make a fortune, they simply took him for an idiot. I can only say that now, no one knows where the Golden Town is located better than me. Yo, Kulik, are you going to find the Golden Land? Ha 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 ha. The offspring of the great liar, do you want to buy something? Kulik, I have a map of the Golden Town here, see if it's the same as the place Rolando went to. Ha 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 ha. Quote. Suddenly, there was a burst of ridicule from the front. Cross looked up and saw a group of street vendors laughing at a young man with a diamond-shaped face and a chestnut on his head. Shut up, Ancestor Rolando is absolutely impossible to lie. The young man blushed and said loudly to the surrounding crowd, what do you guys know? Ancestor Rolando is the best of the Wenbrand family. Man, definitely not the rumored big talker. Listening to the quarrel between the other party and the peddlers on the street, General Humir said curiously, it turns out that there are still people living in the Wenbrand family. Advertisement. Cross nodded silently, and looked at the young man seriously. If he guessed correctly, the other party is the descendant of Vinbrand Rolando 400 years apart, that is, in the original plot, the man who dived into the seabed on Gaia Island for several years in a row, looking for clues to the Golden City, so as to restore the innocence of his ancestors. Winbrand Kulik. Well, I didn't expect to see him. Suddenly, Cross had an inexplicable emotion, and a feeling of unreality lingered in his heart. It's okay, Earl Cross, why don't we change the deal to tomorrow? General Humir noticed the strange expression on Cross's face, and said worriedly. Don't worry, I'm fine. Cross shook his head and said with a smile, I'm just surprised that I will meet Rolando's descendants. Indeed, I thought that even if the Wenbrand family hadn't died, they would have left the Lney kingdom. After all, the deeds of the big talker Rolando made the Lney kingdom the laughingstock of the North Blue nations. General Humir nodded in agreement and said with a sigh. Okay, let's find a hotel to stay, I don't want to sleep on a rocking boat tonight. Cross watched Wenbrand Kulik's quarrel with a group of vendors, and didn't want to tell him the truth plan. Because in his opinion, Rolando didn't really have the kindness to help the Sandia people back then. Otherwise, Rolando would not have brought the king and army of the Lney kingdom to Gaia Island to find the Golden Land. And Cross didn't believe that Rolando would be so naive as to think that a king who traveled thousands of miles from North Blue to the Grand Line to lead an army just for the sake of gold, could resist not doing anything just to see the mountains of gold. Obviously impossible. Think about it, if the other half of Gaia Island hadn't been washed into the Bye-Bye Sea by the upwelling current, and when Rolando led a group of greedy gold diggers and met the Sandia clan, what happened next? History books can't tell. I've written it before, just go back and look it up. But at this time, because the furious Wenbrand Kulik couldn't quarrel with a group of people, he rushed forward and wrestled with a group of people. It has to be said that this guy's strength is much stronger than his mouth. When he hits a group of people alone, not only does he not lose the wind, but the group of people who hit him run away with their heads in their arms, causing the whole street to be disturbed. Beep. Suddenly, a sharp whistle sounded. A group of patrolling soldiers ran over, and the leading officer blew his whistle vigorously, angrily raised the stick in his hand, and pointed at Wenbrand Kulik tremblingly. B********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* ******************************�e. Seeing this, Wen Bulan Kulik punched the guy he had knocked unconscious again, and then dropped him cursingly, turned around and ran unhurriedly, and disappeared in the blink of an eye to the little guy near the street. Alley. Advertisement. Seeing this scene, Cross couldn't help laughing, this guy really has a personality. Afterwards, Cross, General Humil and others left the street, found a large hotel in the city, and checked in for accommodation. It was only around 10 in the morning, and they didn't intend to wait until the afternoon, let alone leave the kingdom of Lney immediately after the transaction was completed. Since it was hard to come to Lney kingdom, it is natural to see the customs of this country and have the right to travel at public expense. At 3% in the afternoon, when the sun was shining, the hot weather made many people huddle in a cool place, unwilling to move. Cross and General Humir led a dozen guards and found a coconut grove outside the city to the east. Sure enough, they saw a large long building, all made of red bricks, with dark blue tiles on the top. Peace. What's more, there are dozens of fierce-looking men gathered around, all of them carrying weapons such as machetes, muskets, and hatchets, and they are not good people at first glance. There were brown marks on the white sandstone floor, which Cross and General Hummel recognized immediately, the marks of dried blood. Looks like we're here. Cross laughed. Call. General Hummel took a deep breath, and led the crowd forward. Soon, a tall and thin man stopped Cross, Hummel and his party, and asked very rudely, "Stop, what are you here for?" The other party was an exhibitionist with a bare upper body, with tattoos of a black skull and a roaring bear head on his chest, an X-shaped scar on his right abdomen, wearing loose gray cropped pants on his lower body, and wearing a pair of taedao. The muscles on his body are in the shape of lines, which looks very stylish. Especially the faint evil spirit made Cross couldn't help but look a few more times. "We came here for the transaction through the introduction of Joker, and we have already talked to Mr. Postman on the phone this morning." Humir looked at the other party without fear, and said in a deep voice. Wen Bulan Kulik is also called Meng Bulong Kuligite, the translation is different. Chapter 11, Storm Bear Onik. Advertisement. Joker. Hearing the familiar name suddenly, Cross couldn't help but widen his eyes, and looked at General Humir strangely, but held back his words. He didn't ask carefully before. He only knew that the high-level officials of Tobias Kingdom found an underground arms dealer codenamed Postman, through the introduction of an intermediary, and only then did they come to Lney Kingdom for this transaction. But I didn't expect that the middleman turned out to be the guy, Joker. It seems that Doflamingo has already begun to integrate North Blue's underground forces at this time, forming a huge network of relationships. Joker and Postman. At the same time, the shirtless guy showed a strange smile, looked at Hummel, Cross and the others with slightly teasing eyes, and then said, "Come with me, Mr. Postman, just inside." After speaking, he turned around and walked towards the big red brick warehouse. General Hummel looked at Cross with some anxiety, and after getting the signal from Cross' eyes, he mustered up his courage and raised his legs to follow. Although he is a general of the kingdom, his own strength is too limited in this sea, especially in the unfamiliar place of Lney Kingdom, where there are only a dozen guard soldiers as guards. It is really not safe sense. At this moment, the group of people around the red brick warehouse came together, joying and laughing. There were tens of hundreds of people, and they all had jokes and sarcasm on their faces, as if they were watching something funny. Coupled with the ferocious expressions of these people and the scars and tattoos exposed on their bodies, it frightened the dozen or so guard soldiers enough, for fear that these people would attack suddenly. Hey, guess they will be surprised when they see Mr. Postman later. Mr. Hart took them there personally. It seems that the next thing is to play. Did you see, there is actually a kid. This kid looks good. If you sell it to some nobles or rich merchants with unique tastes, you can definitely make a lot of money. Quote. Cross frowned, silently listening to the conversations coming from around him, and the fire in his heart became more and more intense. Advertisement. If he hadn't been afraid of the name Joker, he would have drawn his sword and killed these bastards long ago. Not long after, under the leadership of the shirtless guy, Cross, General Humil and a group of people walked into the red brick warehouse. This red brick warehouse is very large, almost the size of 2 basketball courts. Many long wooden boxes are piled up against the wall, and the number is not less than hundreds of boxes. The open space in the middle was covered by a brown tarpaulin. Judging from the protruding shape of the tarpaulin, it was a big guy, and it should be a cannon. However, Cross also noticed that on the ground of the red brick warehouse there was still bloodline that had not been cleaned up, which had turned into brown blood clots, and there was even a bloody corpse hanging in midair a few meters away, covered in deep bruises. Bone scars were visible, and black and white ropes were attached to the roof of the warehouse. Kunhahaha. At this time, a strong man over 3 meters tall laughed and walked towards him, wearing a black coat embroidered with gold trim, with several scars on his bare chest, and wearing dark blue jeans and black marten boots, as strong as a giant bear standing upright, walking with a strong power. But the moment General Humil saw the other party, his expression suddenly changed, and he whispered in disbelief. The postman is actually him. Are you kidding me? What's wrong? Cross noticed General Humir's expression, and asked in a strange whisper, who is he? Call. General Humir took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and said to Cross in a low voice, this guy is a pirate. Or, Storm Bear Onik with a bounty of 68 million Baileys, the famous big pirate of North Blue. Speaking of this, he complained in a low voice. Joker, what a joke. He actually introduced such a notorious guy to us as a transaction partner. Grizzly Bear Onik seems to have heard the name before. Cross thought about it, and soon remembered the other party's identity and rumors. This guy is the captain of the violent bear pirates. He is famous for attacking Marines' warships. He often cuts off commercial waterways and robs passing merchant ships. Moreover, the reason why this guy became notorious by General Humir is that the other party likes to lie. When he often robs merchant ships, he says that he only needs to surrender and only robs property and does not kill people, but in fact he backtracks and kills a whole ship at every turn. It can be said that if you make a deal with such a dishonest pirate, it is not surprising that the other party will draw a gun and kill someone in the next second, wanting money and goods. Also, no wonder I think this guy looks familiar. Then, General Humir glanced at the bare-chested guy leading the way, and said, this man, if I remember correctly, is the violent bear pirates. The captain of the battle, offering a reward of 31 million Baileys for frenzied blade heart. Crazy knife. Advertisement. Cross raised his brows, his eyes fell on the sword hanging from the opponent's waist, and then showed a more interested expression. Soon, when Storm Bear Onik walked in front of him, General Humil still squeezed out a smile, and said politely, Mr. Postman, it's our first time meeting. Sorry, I forgot to say that. However, before General Humil finished speaking, Storm Bear Onik interrupted. Mr. Postman is this one. Looking in the direction of the opponent's finger, it turned out to be the bloody corpse hanging in midair. General Humir's face froze, and he stood there on the spot. It turned out that it wasn't that Joker introduced the wrong person, but that the real postman was dead. Cross squinted his eyes, and guessed the truth of the matter in his heart. This grizzly bear Onik should have killed the underground arms dealer, postman, then robbed the opponent's arms, and used the postman's phone bug to lure them here, but I don't know if this guy intends to continue the transaction, or planning to do another wave of costless deals. Thinking of this, Cross became even more vigilant, looking around carefully, looking at the dozen or so pirates leaning against the wall. However, Storm Bear Onik killed the postman. Isn't he afraid of offending Doflamingo, the middleman? Especially in North Blue, besides Germa 66, Cross does not believe that there is anyone who can be stronger than Doflamingo, otherwise in the original plot, Naval Headquarters would not send a big staff crane to North Blue to hunt down Doflamingo, not only because of the identity relationship of the other party. Kunhahaha. At this time, Storm Bear Onik was very satisfied with General Humir's expression, and laughed proudly. Don't worry, although the postman is dead, the transaction can still continue. Besides, Storm Bear Onik you must know him, he is famous for keeping his promise. As long as you bring enough money, ammunition, what I have is, Chapter 12 Blackmail. Advertisement. You. Hearing the other party bragging about his reputation, General Humil was almost dumbfounded. He couldn't even say a whole sentence, and couldn't help but slander in his heart. If you talk about credibility, those who died in your hands after surrendering innocent people, isn't it too unjust to die? After a while, Onyx saw that the other party hadn't said a word for a long time. His face darkened instantly, and he asked dissatisfiedly, "Hey, don't you want to continue trading?" Of course, General Humir didn't want to continue the deal, but he looked at the many pirates in the warehouse again. He struggled for a while, so he gritted his teeth and said, "I agree to the deal, but I need to check the quality of the ammunition first." Kunhahaha. Hearing this, Onyx laughed happily, pointed to the rows of long wooden boxes piled up behind him, and said loudly, "Check casually, all of them are the latest flintlock rifles, as well as the matching lead bullets and gunpowder. It's just that the price still needs to be negotiated." What's the meaning? Just as General Hummel was about to go up to inspect the ammunition, he couldn't help but stop when he heard Onyx's words behind him. The meaning is very simple. It took me a lot of effort to get this batch of arms, and the price will naturally go up. Onyx triumphantly stretched out a finger as thick as a carrot, and said as it should be, the price will increase. Not much, just double it, 600 million Baileys, you can take all this batch of arms. Are you kidding me? General Humir was very angry, and said loudly, the agreed 300 million Baileys, how can we raise the price on the ground? HMPH. That's what you guys agreed with the postman, but you didn't agree with me. Onyx snorted coldly, and took a step forward suddenly. The strong evil spirit made General Humir's complexion change suddenly, and he could hardly bear to step back. Seeing that Humir was afraid of him, Onyx showed contempt and said grimly, I can wait for you if you don't have any money, as long as you leave a deposit of 300 million Baileys, and send another 300 million Baileys within 10 days. This batch of arms is also sold to you. General Humir's face was ugly. Knowing that his performance was a bit embarrassing, he couldn't help being a little ashamed and angry, and then said stiffly, it's too expensive, I won't buy it. Not buying. Onyx's face darkened, and he said angrily, Lousy has laboriously transported this batch of ammunition. Are you playing lousy by saying you don't buy it? It's okay if you don't buy it. You will bear the shipping cost. It's not much, only 300 million Bay profit. You are blackmailing. General Hummel said angrily. Ask me to blackmail, do you have evidence? Onyx said disdainfully. If you can't produce evidence, be careful, I will sue you for defamation. You. General Hummel was furious. Advertisement. Now, I give you two choices. With a grim expression on his face, Onyx stretched out two fingers at General Humir, and said sharply, first, take out 600 million Baileys, and I will sell this batch of arms to you. Second, you don't have to buy them. Compensate me for the shipping fee of 300 million Baileys, and you can leave. General Humir blushed with anger, and his dark brown skin turned a sour purple. At this point, he still doesn't know that Onyx is clearly interested in the 300 million Baileys he brought. Let me talk. Suddenly, Cross, who had been watching coldly, took a step forward, and reached out to stop General Hummel, who was about to explode. Seeing that it was Cross, General Hummel, who was so angry that he was about to go to his head, subsided a little, and stepped back without saying a word, giving up the leader's position. It's another brat. What do you say? Onyx stared at Cross in front of him with eyes as big as bull's eyes. Cross looked at Onyx without fear, and said in a flat tone, 600 million Baileys, we bought this batch of munitions. Earl Cross, shut up, let me decide now. Seeing that Cross actually agreed to buy it at a price of 600 million Baileys, General Hummel was in a hurry and shouted to stop it, but was interrupted by Cross unceremoniously. Shocked by Cross' aura, General Hummir's heart shuddered, and he subconsciously closed his mouth. Kunahaha. Seeing this, Onyx grinned and smiled excitedly. Very good. Very good. I didn't expect you, a little brat, to be so refreshing. But I need to check the munitions first. Cross said again. No problem, please. Onyx turned his body sideways and stretched out his hand to make a gesture of please. Cross was not polite either. He raised his legs and walked forward, slamming off the brown tarpaulins covering those big guys. Sure enough, a series of shiny black cannons were neatly arranged in the open space in the middle of the warehouse. There was one row of fourth gate cannons, a total of 5 rows, with a total of 20 cannons. Although the current artillery is divided by the weight of the projectile, but looking at the caliber of these artillery, it can still be recognized vaguely. 8 18-pound guns, 8 24-pound guns, 4 32-pound guns. Cross observed these cannons, and patted the cold barrels lightly with his hand. None of them fell down, as if he was really checking. Advertisement. And he also pried open several wooden boxes containing shells, and looked at the gunpowder in the matching gunpowder barrel to see if there was damp. Only, General Hummel was anxious on the sidelines. Because the kingdom only has 300 million berries in deposits, there is no way to get 600 million berries. How? Onyx said with a smile. These cannons are all the latest production cannons, and the iron materials for casting are all high-quality iron materials. Soon, Cross returned to the first batch of cannons, with a smile on his immature and handsome face, and said slowly, I am very satisfied with this batch of cannons, I will not look at the cannons, I want them all. Coon ha ha ha, then pay with one hand and deliver with one hand. Onyx laughed. Don't worry, let's calculate the price first. Cross raised his hand, pointed to Onyx and said, I have no problem with you talking about the batch of 600 million Baileys. But for your life, how much do you want to buy it? Marine, the reward for you is 68 million Baileys, I believe you should be dissatisfied with this reward. Little ghost, what do you mean? Onyx said with a cold face, staring at Cross coldly. Haha, what do you mean? It's very simple. Cross laughed lightly, hugged the thick barrel of a cannon with both hands, lifted it vigorously, and then mercilessly swung it towards Onyx's body. Nani. Onyx's eyes widened, and before he could react, he was hit by the thick barrel of the roaring 32-pound artillery. Bang. Rumble. In an instant, Onyx was blown away like a baseball. He flew over 10 meters away in an instant, smashed through the thick warehouse wall, and flew directly outside with a strong air wave and countless broken bricks, in the coconut grove. Moreover, 7 or 8 of the tall coconut trees were broken, causing thick smoke and dust. Let's do it, Captain Onyx. The captain was sent flying. What kind of monster is this kid? Quote. In the next second, General Humir, a dozen guard soldiers in the red brick warehouse, and the pirates of the Violent Bear pirates realized that they all held their heads, and their eyeballs protruded in shock. Chapter 13 Rush. Advertisement. UB**********D. You actually blackmailed me. Cross spat unhappily, and gently put down the 32-pound cannon he was holding in his arms. After the heavy metal cannon touched the ground, it made a muffled sound of boom. Hole. At this time, Frenzied Sword Heart roared, and directly pulled out the sword from his waist, rushed forward with one stride, and slashed towards Cross with the sword. The light of a sword suddenly appeared in the air, and a fierce gust of wind hit him head-on. Swordsman. Just in time. Cross grinned, and instead of retreating, he also drew out the samurai sword from his waist to meet him. Clang. In the next second, the two knives collided, and the flames flashed through the air, and the crisp metal clanging sounded in the ear, which aroused a gust of wind and spread outward. Damn brats, originally you handed over the money honestly, and we planned to let you go. Heart's face was grim, holding the handle of the knife with both hands, and while wrestling with Cross, he said viciously, now, all of you die here for me. Small pirates, stop talking big. Cross glanced at Heart's face calmly, grasped the handle of the knife with both hands, and pushed forward vigorously, and the opponent was pushed back a few steps backwards with powerful force. How is this possible? One knife-style shock wave. Heart turned pale with fright, and managed to stand still, when he saw Cross on the opposite side give a low shout, and swung his knife across, setting off a fierce wind of the knife visible to the naked eye. Bang! Heart quickly used the long knife in his hand to block in front of him, but he was still blown away by the raging wind of the knife, and hit heavily on the warehouse wall 10 meters away. The thick walls were sunken, showing terrifying sunken cracks, like huge spider webs hanging on the walls. Go to hell. At this moment, among the pirates behind Cross, a man with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks was suddenly picked out. He threw out his hands continuously, and shot throwing knives one after another, heading straight for Cross's back. Be careful. Seeing this, General Hummel hurriedly reminded him. But almost at the same time, Cross turned around like lightning, swung the long knife in his hand, and knocked 4 or 5 flying knives to the ground with a few clicks. How is it possible? I obviously shot the throwing knife behind him, where the eyes can't see. The man with the sharp mouth and monkey cheeks shouted in disbelief. Advertisement. Count Cross, that guy is the navigator of the Bear Pirates, Sneaker, Rocco with a bounty of 12 million Baileys. General Humir said loudly. You're the only one who talks too much. Rocco was so angry that he raised his hand and shot at General Hummel with a throwing knife. Seeing this, Cross was about to step forward to block it, but saw General Humir quickly pull out a flintlock pistol from his waist, and knock the flying knives to the ground with a bang shot. Good marksmanship. Cross, eyes lit up, and he whistled frivolously. Don't underestimate me, General Hummel said angrily, lousy as the general of Tobias' kingdom. Brothers, go out and send a signal, shake people and kill these pirates. Afterwards, General Hummel greeted him, and led a dozen guard soldiers behind him to rush out of the warehouse. Mad, it's as if no one has a helper. You must know that before they came, they brought all the soldiers on the kingdom's warships. There were more than 200 soldiers from the kingdom's army and the guards. They had muskets, long swords, spears and other weapons, but they didn't have any armor, hidden in the bushes by the sea not far away. The 20 or so pirates in the warehouse were a little caught off guard, and were rushed out by a dozen guard soldiers brought by General Humir. Boom. Call out. Next, General Hummel raised his hand and fired a shot into the sky. A ball of red light shot straight into the sky, making a strange howling sound, and finally exploded with a pop, like fireworks. When the signal was sent out, countless human heads popped out of the bushes by the sea, and then their bodies were exposed. All of them rushed out with weapons in their hands. The signal is sent, everyone rush. General Hummel needs support, hurry up. Get rid of these bastards. Quote. In the open space in front of the red brick warehouse, dozens of hundreds of pirates were besieging Humir and the others. Unexpectedly, more than 200 enemies suddenly appeared behind them, and they were caught off guard on the spot. Lead bullets, throwing axes, throwing spears, long-range weapons came first, and brought down a dozen pirates on the spot. Advertisement. However, the pirates of the Bear Pirates fight at sea all year round. They are all brave and skilled in combat, and have rich combat experience. So much so that the soldiers of the Kingdom of Tobias fought more and less, and with the addition of surprise tactics, they were still inextricably fighting against the nearly 100 pirates of the Bear Pirates. More than 300 people from both sides fought together, gunshots and sword clashes were intertwined, fierce shouts of killing could be heard endlessly, blood soon stained the sandstone open space in front of the red brick warehouse. Hundreds of people were fighting, with long spears and swords, and muskets and throwing axes. Outsiders saw it and thought it was a small-scale war. After all, in North Blue, ordinary gangsters could not reach this scale. Rush scenes, unless it's West Blue's mafia, are pretty much the same. In the coconut grove on the other side, Storm Bear Onyx stood up from the ground dizzily while holding on to the trunk of a broken coconut tree. UB asterisk 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 D, Lousy is going to tear you apart. The next second, Onyx roared angrily, and without even wiping off the bloodline at the corner of his mouth, he rushed forward all the way, rushing in through the big hole in the wall of the red brick warehouse. Cross dodged continuously, avoiding the attacks of several throwing knives, then quickly stepped forward, and nailed the sneak attacker Rocco on the ground with a 12 million Bailey bounty, and immediately felt a strong fishy smell the wind was blowing, and I couldn't help but look up, and I saw Onyx the violent bear rushing towards him, and opened his thick arms, hugging him. Go to hell, bear hug. This embrace was as terrifying as a tank rushing towards him. Although the door was wide open, Cross hurriedly backed away and dodged to the side. If he failed to kill the opponent with a swing of the knife, then he would definitely be hugged by the opponent next, and there would be a heavy hug and fall. This style of fighting to the death is not suitable for a swordsman like him. Should die, beheaded. Suddenly, that crazy saber hard rushed out from the side, and swung the long knife in his hand out of the sky, covering the entire area of Cross within the attacking range. Cross was fearless, and at the critical moment, he retracted the long knife in his hand into the scabbard around his waist, then grasped the scabbard with his left hand, and the handle with his right hand, posing in an II posture. Jihei Moro Zan, Kanglang. The long knife was out of its sheath, and the bright light of the knife suddenly appeared, instantly defeating the shadow of the knife all over the sky. At some point, Cross appeared behind Hart as if teleporting, but Hart couldn't lower his head directly, and saw a huge scar on his chest, with blood gushing out like a fountain. Ah! The next moment, a miserable cry of pain came from Hart's mouth, and then he fell heavily on the ground, and the long knife in his hand fell to the ground. Chapter 14 Demon Fruit Power. Advertisement. Sorry, you lost. Cross turned around, bent down to pick up the long knife dropped by the other party from the ground, and said with a smile, so your knife belongs to me. Liang Kuei Knife 50 Skills, Jingsho. It's really a rare famous knife. Cross weighed the Jingsho knife in his hand with satisfaction, and found that the shiny body of this famous knife was held by a black lacquer tachi, with a beautiful knife pattern similar to the shape of a mountain on the blade, and an inscription engraved on the blade, Mountains and Rivers Jingsho. Obtained equipment. Famous knife, Jingsho, +1. At this time, seeing his subordinates die one after another, Onyx the bear's eyes were red, and he roared angrily, UB asterisk 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 D. I'm going to kill you. In an instant, his body swelled rapidly as if inflated, and the clothes on his body were torn apart with a tearing sound, and black and shiny black hair swelled out, covering his whole body, turning into a head on the spot. A huge black bear standing upright, with a height of 4 meters. Ah! Cross was taken aback, and said in surprise, it's actually Zone's demon fruit power. Devil fruit is the incarnation of the sea devil in the legend. After eating it, you will get different abilities, but the price is that you will be disgusted by the sea and become a landlubber, unable to swim for a lifetime, so not everyone is willing to eat it. Devil fruit. Just like General Humil, he would rather exchange devil fruit for money than choose to eat it. It's just that Cross didn't expect that not long after he ate a devil fruit, he met another demon fruit power. Is this the attraction between demons? Of course, it's more of a coincidence. Boom, 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 boom. Afterwards, the enraged Onyx was like a behemoth going mad, striding forward with heavy steps, fiercely charging forward, like a huge chariot, even denting the sandstone ground with every step. The terrifying power came at him, and without thinking, Cross quickly dodged aside. Bang! In the next second, the sandstone floor was punched by Onyx, who turned into a giant bear, and a deep punch hole appeared, surrounded by cracks. The huge force even shook the entire red brick warehouse. Smelly brat, just suffer and die. Onyx roared again and again, waving his fists constantly, and hit Cross like a storm, and the strong wind that was blown up even more dense smoke and dust. Advertisement. With the continuous loud bangs of boom boom boom, the sandstone floor of the red brick warehouse was smashed into big holes one after another by this huge black bear with brute force. Broken sandstone was constantly splashing everywhere, and thick smoke and dust quickly spread over the warehouse, diffuse within. Suddenly, Cross stopped and stretched out his palm, directly blocking Onyx's fist. Boom! The fists and palms collided, and the strength burst out. The dull loud noise immediately echoed in the warehouse, and a strong gust of wind stirred up in the air, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, the ground beneath the two of them crumbled together, and large cracks in the shape of spider webs appeared. How is this possible? Onyx's eyes widened, and he couldn't believe that this brat who had been avoiding everywhere actually blocked his fist with one hand. He even found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't overwhelm the opponent, and he couldn't even move a centimeter forward. I thought you had so much strength, but it seems that I overestimated you. Cross slowly raised his head, glanced at Onyx with indifferent eyes, and then swung the Jingsho knife in his right hand, slashed at Onyx's chest. At this moment, Onyx's heart trembled, and he quickly retreated, narrowly dodging Cross's slash. However, a long line of blood still appeared on his chest, apparently injured by the sharp knife wind. Cross let out a tisk, carefully looked at the Jingsho knife in his hand, and said with satisfaction, it can even cut through the air, it is really sharp. It's too arrogant to take my subordinate's knife, brat. Onyx burst into anger, couldn't help roaring, shaking his huge body, and slapped Cross towards Cross. Grizzly bear slap. The huge bear's paw contains terrifying power, and it blows up a violent wind. HMPH, I'll take you to try the knife. Cross snorted softly, stabbing out the Jingsho knife in his hand, but before approaching Onek's palm, he deftly drew a semicircle and slashed towards the opponent's wrist. Onek was shocked, and subconsciously withdrew his arm, but he was still cut to the back of his hand, leaving a deep scar with bone visible. Immediately, Cross looked indifferent, swung the Jingsho knife in his hand, and flung the bloodline on the tip of the knife away, but he didn't stop walking, and quickly dodged to the right side of Onek, and without waiting for the opponent to fight back, he suddenly raised his leg and swept across. With a slap kick, it kicked heavily on the crook of his right leg, kicking this cumbersome bear staggering on the spot. Onek couldn't stand still, and knelt down on one knee, smashing the ground to pieces. Damn it, little stinky. Boom. Advertisement. Immediately afterwards, the furious Onek was just about to stand up to fight back, when Cross turned around and whipped his leg again, and swept heavily on the back of Onek's head, kicking the guy's head into the sandstone ground on the spot. His whole face there was an intimate contact with the ground. If the sandstone floor of the red brick warehouse is a mold, I'm afraid it can give Onek a mask of himself. Let me use your brain. Cross whispered, holding the handle of the knife with both hands, raised the Jingsho knife above his head, and slashed at Onek's neck mercilessly like an executioner beheading a condemned criminal. At this moment, Onek, whose head was buried in the ground, was still a little dizzy, but the intuition from the beast made him feel strong heart palpitations, which was a fatal threat. He didn't even think about it, just rolled on the spot, and quickly rolled to the side. Laugh. Bang. In the next second, Cross's long knife fell, and the invisible sharp edge split the ground instantly, forming a deep crack several meters long. It hurts. It hurts. On the other side, the huge black bear covered its painful face with one hand and groped the chilly back of its neck with the other, and stood up from the ground in a hurry, really frightened. Actually escaped. Cross raised his brows in surprise, curled his lips and said, however, since you showed me your ability, then you should also look at mine. Hey, didn't you say that these cannons are yours? Then call them and see if they will agree. Activation automatic artillery group. The next moment, the cannons placed on the open space in the middle moved by themselves, the wheels of the lower body turned, and quickly formed the formation, aiming the muzzle of the black hole at Onek's defense line. At the same time, from the wooden box that was originally opened, shiny black solid cannonballs also jumped out automatically, with eyes and mouths, bouncing on the ground with a thud, thump, thump, find the artillery of the corresponding caliber, and jumped into the barrel of the artillery with a smile. Afterwards, several round wooden barrels containing gunpowder also came to life, and the cork on the top of the head popped out automatically, and the grains of black gunpowder contained in the body were poured into the barrel of the artillery. Then there are those artillery pieces that are idle and no shells jump into their muzzles. They have found torches from somewhere, and the muzzles of the black holes are like mouths. Lighting the tail match of the cannon loaded with shells and powder. Chapter 15 Heavenly Yaksha. Advertisement. What the FK is this? The scene in front of him left Onek dumbfounded, he could hardly believe his eyes. The cooperation between these living cannons, shells and gunpowder barrels is faster and tacit than the most powerful gunner. In the next second, the fire rope at the tail of the artillery burned out quickly, and a huge deafening roar suddenly sounded. Boom, 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 boom. The cannons shook suddenly, and the muzzles of the black holes burst into dazzling flames, and the shells in the barrels were fired out. Oh, it's over. Onek groaned like a wry smile, completely giving up avoiding or resisting. At a distance of less than 10 meters, 8 24-pound cannons fired a volley. Onek, who had turned into a giant bear, had no way to dodge. He was hit by 4 solid shells in an instant and flew upside down on the spot. To be honest, the body of a person with zone ability is strong enough. If it is an ordinary person, let alone being hit by 4 solid shells, even if he is hit by 1 solid shell, that is also the end of the separation of the body, and there is no such thing as being blown away. This kind of thing. Bang. Accompanied by a loud bang, Onek flew upside down and smashed through the wall of the red brick warehouse, and fell heavily on the open space outside, causing thick smoke and dust, and countless broken bricks scattered in all directions. The pirates and soldiers outside were in pain. It hurts. What happened? Something flew out. Strange. Monster. Captain Onek. How so? Quote. The pirates and soldiers outside the red brick warehouse wailed, stopped fighting involuntarily, and looked towards the huge black shadow flying out of the thick smoke. As a result, the huge black bear transformed by Onek scared the soldiers of the kingdom of Tobias, thinking it was some kind of monster. Advertisement. Although the pirates of the Bear Pirates could recognize Onek's identity, they were all taken aback, especially when they saw Onek lying on the ground covered in blood, and then slowly changed from a giant bear state back to a human form. I could hardly believe my eyes. It's unheard of for a big pirate with a bounty of 68 million Baileys to be seriously injured like this. At the same time, in the bushes not far away, a tall and thin man in a red cloak happened to be watching the scene in front of the red brick warehouse. This person has chestnut hair, wears a blue 2-cornered hat, light blue sunglasses on his face, a dark blue jacket, bare chest, and beige cropped pants with orange stripes on his lower body. Wearing a long sword in between, it's like the Aborigines put on hip-hop style clothes. Dover, that Onek guy seems to have fallen. The man who came out of the blue looked surprised, and said to a pink phone bug held in his right hand. Diamante, what's going on? The phone bug opened its mouth, and a deep voice came out. It turned out that this sudden man was one of the 4 top cadres of the Don Quixote family, Diamante code-named Cube. And the person talking to Diamante is the leader of the Don Quixote family, Don Quixote Doflamingo, nicknamed open black lens bracket heavenly yaksha close black lens bracket. Dover, I don't know too well. It seems that when the guy from Tobias Kingdom made a deal with Onyx, there was a fierce conflict. Diamante said in a concentrated voice. Cordell Onyx used Devil Fruit's ability, but was seriously injured, and even the fruit ability can't be maintained. Foo, that's really good news. I didn't expect that in the kingdom of Tobias, there is actually a character who can defeat the wild bear Onyx. It's really not to be underestimated. On the other side of the phone bug, Doflamingo let out a cheerful laugh, and there was a bit of surprise in his words. At this time, the thick smoke and dust in front of the red brick warehouse had slowly dissipated. Holding the Jingsho knife in his hand, Cross walked out of the big hole in the wall that Onyx had pierced step by step. Diamante looked at Cross, immature face in astonishment, and said in disbelief, Dover, the guy who defeated Onyx seems to be an underage brat. Suddenly, the expression of Cross in front of the red brick warehouse moved slightly, and he suddenly turned his head to look at the bushes by the sea 100 meters away. Diamante couldn't help being startled by his sharp gaze, as if he felt a knife blade coming towards him, making him subconsciously take a step back. Damn it, Dover, I've been found. Diamante's face was ugly, and he held the hilt of the long sword at his waist with his left hand, and quickly said to the phone bug, this kid seems unusual, and he may even have observation haki. That's right, that's really an unusual kid. Doflamingo's slightly teasing but full of haki voice came from the phone number. Let me see what's different about this brat. Immediately, a black shadow flashed across the ground very quickly, as if something was flying through the sky. Who? Cross's expression froze, and he suddenly shouted at the sky. Advertisement. Hulala. In the next second, a black shadow flew over the head very quickly, setting off a gust of hunting wind, and then gently landed on the top of the red brick warehouse. Cross quickly turned around and looked around. The moment he saw the figure, the pupils in his eyes suddenly shrank into pinholes. Short blonde hair, red sunglasses, wearing a black long-sleeved shirt, a red tie, and a pink feather coat, with an evil smile on his face, exuding a unique aura, looking down from above everyone present. Foo, you seem to know me. The familiar and unique laughter, accompanied by the familiar voice, rang in Cross's ears. Heavenly Yaksha, Don Quixote Doflamingo. At this time, Cross didn't speak, but the other people called out the name of the person with horror on their faces. Foo. Doflamingo shifted his gaze to Onyx, who was lying on the ground, let out a deep laugh, and said mockingly, you wild bear, you are really in an unexpected mess. I was very angry when you killed the postman. Now it seems that you have been punished by other people too. Foo. After speaking, condescendingly, he turned his eyes back to Cross, especially when he saw the latter's immature face, he couldn't help showing a look of surprise. Doflamingo. Spare my life. I will join the Don Quixote family. Onyx lay dying on the ground, begging Doflamingo weakly. Foo. Doflamingo chuckled and said, did you misunderstand the person who begged for mercy? The one who defeated you was not me. Cross looked at Doflamingo expressionlessly, couldn't help holding the Jingsho knife tightly in his hand, and said in a deep voice, Doflamingo, should you give us Tobias Kingdom an explanation for this matter? As soon as this remark came out, General Humir on the side almost fainted from fright. In North Blue, apart from the famous evil army, Germa 66, Doflamingo and his Don Quixote family are the most vicious. To be honest, General Humir didn't want to provoke a big pirate of this level at all. Chapter 16. The conflict begins. Advertisement. Confession. Doflamingo was taken aback for a moment, then laughed, foo, and said indifferently, this matter is indeed my mistake, then I will give you a 50% discount for this batch of arms, and you will pay 150 million Baileys. Hearing this, Cross looked gloomy and said coldly, are you kidding me? This batch of ammunition is my spoils of war. Do you have anything to do with half Baileys? Not only is Cross unhappy, but even General Humil is unhappy. I fought life and death for a long time, and finally won the battle. I was waiting to drag away the munitions worth 300 million berries as spoils of war. As a result, when you came, not only did you want to take the munitions away, but I also paid 150 million won Bailey. It's too much. Foo. What do you mean, you want to take all my things away without paying 1 Bailey? Doflamingo raised his brows, and reached out to support the sunglasses on his face. More than 3 meters high, his body leaned forward slightly, as if a big bird was hunting and would kill it at any time. Cross sneered, and asked, you said it was yours, so if you call them, will they agree? No, I don't think I should agree. Without waiting for Doflamingo to answer, Cross continued, but I call them, and they will say yes. What? Doflamingo showed doubts on his face, and once thought that Cross had some serious illness, and asked strangely, little devil, are you kidding me? I'm not kidding you. Come on out, babies. Cross grinned and clapped his hands twice. Snapped. There were crisp applause, and the sound of wheels turning suddenly appeared in the red brick warehouse. Doflamingo looked down and saw that in the red brick warehouse gate under his feet, there was a neat line of cannons, and they ran out automatically without being pushed by anyone, even giving people the illusion of holding their heads high. What's more, There are dozens of shiny black cannonballs and several barrels of oak barrels filled with gunpowder, and they are also bouncing and laughing behind the cannons, as if walking out of an army. This scene also made other people present dumbfounded, are surprised, are curious, or thought they were delusional. This is a capable person. Advertisement. A curious expression appeared on Doflamingo's face, and he took a closer look at these living artillery and shells with more interest. How? Cross pointed at the cannons proudly, and said again, "You said they belong to you, so you call them and see if they will follow you." Foo, really saw something interesting. Yes, it is a very interesting ability. Doflamingo was not angry but happy, with an expression of appreciation on his face, and unexpectedly said, "Hey, little devil, what's your name? Do you want to join my family?" After speaking, he jumped directly from the top of the red brick warehouse, but landed on the ground lightly like a bird, and walked in front of Cross. "If you are willing to join my family, I can give you all this batch of arms and let you dispose of them as you like. I can even guarantee that the countries behind you will get a 50% discount on buying arms from me in the future." Doflamingo he stretched out his hand to Cross with a smile, and said sincerely. At this moment, General Humil's heart tightened, and he looked at Cross nervously. To be honest, he both wanted Cross to say yes, and he didn't want Cross to say yes. If Cross agrees, then Tobias Kingdom will not only have a lot of money left over to buy weapons in the future, but also borrow the identity of Doflamingo Joker to buy many powerful weapons that are difficult to buy. But on the contrary, the kingdom of Tobias will lose the pride of a kingdom like Cross, and will have to rely on the kingdom's army to deal with pirates' harassment in the future. For a while, before Cross could say whether he agreed or disagreed, General Hummel had a lot of thoughts in his mind, and even felt a tangled feeling of being in a dilemma. TCH. But soon, Cross looked at Doflamingo with contemptuous eyes, and said disdainfully and unceremoniously, "Come on, I never thought that I would end up begging at sea and being chased by marine every day. Run around behind. It's just a bunch of garbage on the sea, do you think you are something amazing?" As soon as these words came out, like a bomb, everyone present was stunned, and the scene fell into an indescribable silence. Although it is undeniable that everyone thinks that pirates are nothing more than a group of sea trash that burns, kills and loots, but very few people dare to say this in front of pirates, especially the famous North Blue pirates. However, the above words are also on the mind of Cross. Especially the 3 days of life at sea made him understand that he should be a nobleman, eat well, drink well, sleep well, without the safety of his life, isn't it good? Advertisement. I have to go to the sea to be a pirate, to pursue the so-called freedom and the big secret treasure, and then be chased by the marine and run around behind my A. I can't eat well, drink well, and sleep well all day long. Isn't it interesting to threaten? I was just an ordinary person in my previous life. In this life, I came back to a wealthy family and became an aristocrat who can eat and wait to die. Why should I go on the road of no return of pirate? Unless you can't think about it and your brain is still sick, you can become a pirate, which is almost the same. Smelly brat, how dare you say that? Immediately, Doflamingo gritted his teeth and glared at Cross viciously, with the veins on his forehead popping out. The strong murderous aura overflowed, almost causing the temperature in the air to drop a lot, and scenes of the past quickly flashed through his mind. If there is a choice, I am the most honorable person in the world. The next second, Doflamingo, who seemed to have been poked against the scales, suddenly raised his leg, and his right leg swept forward like a whip, like a black phantom flashing through the air. Almost at the same time, Cross raised the Jingsho knife like lightning and blocked it in front of him. Clang. The ear-piercing explosion made everyone's eardrums vibrate, and there was a violent vibration in the air immediately, which set off violent air waves visible to the naked eye, which roared and spread in all directions. At the same time, the ground under the two of them shattered on the spot, turning into countless cracks and spreading outwards, quickly forming huge spider web-like cracks. Ah, what happened? Weird. Monster. Quote. Some soldiers and pirates who were closer were affected and were blown away by the gust-like air waves, and they couldn't help screaming in horror. Chapter 17 The Conqueror's Haki. Advertisement. Smelly brat, watch me pull out your teeth and hang you on the sails of the boat, you will know that there is a price to be paid for saying something. Miscellaneous bird, have you been stabbed by me? If you can do it, come on. You're courting death. 5 color strings. Quote. Doflamingo was furious, turned over suddenly and jumped up, his 5 fingers were clawed, and he waved his hand and landed on Cross's head. Cross was not afraid, and the Jingsho knife in his hand immediately turned into a gleam of coldness, and with a clang, it collided with 5 invisible silk threads in front of the opponent's fingertips. Amidst the sound of metal and iron clanging, there were sparks visible to the naked eye flashing in the air. Apparently, these 5 silk threads, which only glowed in the air under the sun, were even tougher than steel wires. Immediately afterwards, Doflamingo, relying on his height and arm length, brandished the tough silk thread he had made, and attacked Cross fiercely, intending to cut him into pieces. Cross had a cold expression, and the open black lens bracket Jingsho close black lens bracket knife in his hand spilled light like an arm and finger, colliding with the tough crystal silk threads continuously, bursting out the intensive sound of dang, clang, clang, and even agitated bursts of vigor. Back up quickly. Don't block me, get out of the way. Quote. Seeing this, the surrounding soldiers and pirates were all horrified and retreated one after another, not only to make enough space for these two people to fight, but also for fear of being accidentally injured. Suddenly, during the fierce battle between the two sides, Cross found a gap in Doflamingo, and stabbed out without hesitation, directly passed through the opponent's defensive circle, and went straight to the opponent's lower abdomen. Ding! The sharp long knife pierced a dark metal-like skin, and there was a sound of gold and iron colliding. Damn it! Cross' face changed suddenly, and without thinking, he stepped back decisively. At this moment, Doflamingo raised his arm brazenly and swung it down fiercely. Clang! There was another explosion of gold and iron colliding. I saw Cross holding a knife in both hands, showing a defensive posture, but his body was pushed by a strong force, and he moved back a few meters, and two conspicuous marks were rubbed on the ground with both feet. Bullet string. Doflamingo didn't stop, but stretched out his arm, aimed at Cross with his right index finger, and the fingertip created a thin white line, which shot go out like a bullet. Advertisement. Call out, call out, call out, call out. Amid the sound of breaking through the sky, several tiny white shadows flew out at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Clang, clang, clang. Before he could stand still, Cross swung his knife quickly, as if slashing in the air, and with some difficulty resisted Doflamingo's attack. Suddenly, by accident, Cross suddenly turned his body sideways, and a thin white line flew past his face, hitting the ground behind him, and with a bang, a hole the size of a bowl was directly punched out of the solid sandstone ground. It seems that you are not proficient in using observation haki. Leg shave string. In an instant, Doflamingo's expression was serious, and he quickly dodged forward, a high whip kick swept out, setting off a strong wind, and 8 almost transparent thin silk threads were produced at the tip of his toes. Bang! Cross hastily raised his knife to parry, but before he had time to use his force, Doflamingo kicked him on the blade, and the huge force kicked him flying with the knife on the spot, and smashed into the nearby coconut grove. At the same time, there is a ring of transparent air waves visible to the naked eye spreading in a circular shape, whizzing up a burst of smoke and dust. Earl Cross. Master Earl. Master Cross. Quote. Everyone in the kingdom of Tobias screamed. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, the cannon roared, grinning and angry shells flew rapidly through the air, making a sharp whistling sound, and smashed towards Doflamingo's position. Cannonball. Seeing this, Doflamingo realized that he had no time to resist, and his body was pulled by a few thin threads that were invisible to the naked eye, fluttering towards the distance. In the next second, 8 shells fell one after another, destroying the sandstone land with a thump, thud, thump, and pits of different sizes appeared, and the surrounding area was even more cracked. It seems that you want to die too. Doflamingo let out a low snort, not caring that these cannons were his own goods, and directly released dozens of transparent silk threads, cutting towards the cannons at the entrance of the red brick warehouse like a big net. These thin wires, which are tougher than steel wires, can be easily cut even by steel, not to mention the mere cast iron cannons. Advertisement. Hey, what do you want to do to my cuties? One knife flow Fimang. Sooner or later, a blue-white slash flew out from the coconut grove at a very high speed, arriving like a flash of light, easily smashing the wire net in midair. B*********** D brat. Doflamingo gritted his teeth, turned his head to look angrily, and the veins on his forehead bulged again. In the next moment, an incomparably terrifying power erupted from Doflamingo's body, even causing the air to tremble and set off a violent gust of wind, which almost changed the color of the world, as if turning the entire space into a strange space with dark tones. Immediately, the soldiers and pirates present were swept away by the violent wind blown out of nowhere, all eyes turned white, and they all fell to the ground like cutting straw, and all fainted. Even the activated artillery, shells, and round wooden barrels containing gunpowder all rolled their eyes and passed out on the ground. What is this? General Humir half kneeled on the ground with a pale face, trying not to let himself faint, with an expression of disbelief in his eyes. To be able to reach this level just by relying on momentum is simply a monster. D. It's too much to take for granted if you want to intimidate me by relying on your aura. Suddenly, Cross roared angrily from the coconut grove, his slightly immature voice was filled with a certain majesty, and then a terrifying aura rose up, like an erupting volcano, viciously clashing with Doflamingo's. The momentum collided together. Bang! At this moment, there was a loud roar like thunder, several red and black lightning bolts across the sky, the air was suddenly disordered, and it turned into a more violent storm and spread out. The scene was extremely terrifying. At the same time, the earth trembled, and countless cracks appeared on the ground. The tall coconut trees were uprooted by the howling wind and blown into the sky. At this moment, General Humir couldn't hold on any longer, his eyeballs rolled up, and he fainted and fell to the ground with a plop. So far, there is no one standing in the audience, and no one is awake. Nani. Only in the bushes not far away, Diamante's expression was distorted, and he shouted in disbelief, that kid actually has Conqueror's haki. What a joke. Chapter 18 Live Fruit vs String Fruit. Advertisement. Blah, 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 blah. Doflamingo lowered his head, his body was twitching, and he let out a deep laugh, and finally raised his head, laughing wildly. Dover. Diamante looked at Doflamingo worriedly, and murmured to himself, no, Dover is the only king. A born king. Nice. It's really good. You are doomed today, celestial dragons can't save you. Suddenly, Doflamingo raised his head abruptly, his cold voice was like the cold winter wind, and he yelled out the last sentence directly. Step, 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 step. Footsteps sounded suddenly, and a figure appeared in the smoke and dust. Cross, holding a long knife with a blank face, pointing the tip of the knife at the ground, stepped out of the smoke and dust step by step, and stood still less than 20 meters away from Doflamingo. By the way, I, an otaku, actually have the posture of a king. What a joke. But you've been nagging for a long time, are you a woman? As soon as the words fell, he slightly raised the long knife in his hand, and then swung it down violently. Bang! The strong wind pressure erupted, causing the ground at his feet to sag on the spot, forming a terrifying sunken crack. Foo 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 foo, excess whip string. Doflamingo laughed angrily, raised his hand, and made dozens of crystal-thin silk threads intertwined with each other, pointing in the direction of Cross, forming a fiery long whip, and shooting it straight out. Snapped. Cross dodged sideways, only to see the fiery whip extending tens of meters hit the ground, instantly leaving a deep crack on the grass in front of the coconut grove. Advertisement. Immediately, Doflamingo waved his arm in the air, and the fiery long whip swept across Cross's waist. Cross hurriedly jumped up, let the fiery long whip brush across the soles of his feet, and cut off a huge sandstone next to it in the middle, and its silky feeling was as smooth as a hot knife cutting butter. After Cross landed and stood firmly, he saw Doflamingo rushing towards him again, with 8 nearly transparent thin silk threads on his toes, sweeping towards him like sharp knives. Leg shave string. Activation inorganic reincarnation. Cross didn't resist hard, but squatted down quickly, avoiding Doflamingo's kick, and put one hand on the ground to display his ability. Rumble. In an instant, the ground shook, and the green grass and mud surged rapidly, gathering into 4 sharp stone pillars, stabbing towards the Doflamingo in the middle. Boom. Doflamingo hurriedly pulled away, flew lightly into the air, stepped on a crystal silk thread invisible to the naked eye, and the 4 sharp stone pillars under his feet crashed into each other, and then collapsed into a large piece of soil. Grass and stones blocks are scattered all over the place. It's really interesting. What is your ability? Doflamingo's glasses shone brightly, and he stretched out his palm to Cross, and there were crystal threads that were invisible to the naked eye pulling between his 5 fingers, and he asked Cross. I'm an animated person who ate the living fruit. Cross glanced at Doflamingo, without any intention of hiding, and said bluntly, the ability is to give life to dead objects and control them. That's right, the devil fruit obtained from the ship of the Yonic pirates is the living fruit of Paramesha, which can give life to dead things, animate them, and manipulate them. However, he has not eaten the living fruit for a long time, and his ability development is limited. There are mainly 2 basic activation abilities. One is that it has a high degree of activation, has independent consciousness and low-level intelligence and emotions, and can obey orders, such as the battleship Harwich 19 of the Kingdom of Tobias, as well as those artillery, shells, and gunpowder-filled guns. Round wooden barrel. The other is that the degree of activation is relatively low, and there is no independent consciousness at all. It simply has life and can be manipulated according to the will of the capable person. For example, the green grass and mud land just now was temporarily given life. Senjutsu inorganic reincarnation in Ninja World is similar, so Cross also took the same name. Very good ability. Doflamingo nodded knowingly, a greedy look flashed through his eyes behind the sunglasses, and he said grimly, it's a pity that you will die here today. After knowing the opponent's specific ability, his brain thought of many ways to use it in a short period of time, and he even imagined that if he could get the help of this fruit eater, he would definitely be able to quickly pull up a support an army that is not afraid of death, and complete many plans that only exist in the mind. It's just that he understands that the other party is not the same as him, so he can only kill him, and then go to find the living fruit after rebirth. Advertisement. It's still the same sentence, if you can kill me, do it. Cross grinned, and hooked his fingers at Doflamingo frivolously. The name of the person, the shadow of the tree. Originally he was very afraid of Doflamingo, thinking that he may not be an opponent, but he just didn't want to bow to this guy and become a pirate, so he spoke out to provoke him. But after the previous battles, he found that Doflamingo's strength was not as strong as he expected, which made his worries swept away and he became more confident. Yup, Doflamingo is still a young guy in his 20s at the moment, and the ability of string fruit may not even be developed for birdcage, let alone reach the state of awakening. It can't compare to the later peak time. Therefore, although I am only 15 years old, I am very talented, and my strength may not be weaker than Doflamingo at this time. Compared to the opponent, it may just be the lack of development of devil fruit's ability, and the absence of armament haki. Fortunately, I am a natural observation haki user, so I lack the experience of fighting against strong players and the flexible use of observation haki. But it's okay. Doflamingo in front of him happens to be a touchstone, and he can measure his current strength. Immediately, Cross, who had made up his mind, decided to take the initiative to attack, and the ground around him roared again, and sharp stone pillars made of grass, soil and debris protruded, like tentacles, toward Doflamingo in the air. Attack the past. Activation inorganic reincarnation. 5 color strings. Doflamingo's expression was gloomy and cold, his body was pulled up rapidly, and he flew towards the sky under the traction of several thin silk threads visible to the naked eye. Bang! Immediately, 7 or 8 sharp stone pillars were chopped into pieces by 5 silk threads as sharp as piano wires, and turned into mud and rocks scattered from the sky. However, at this moment, Cross's body also rose rapidly, and quickly approached Doflamingo's position. It turned out that a cylindrical stone pillar protruded from the ground under his feet, supporting his body. HMPH, you also deserve me to fight in the sky. It's just courting death. Super hit the whip. Doflamingo snorted coldly, and immediately stretched his palms backwards, as if a certain move was in front of him. Then in the next second, dozens of almost transparent thin threads spewed out from his palm, and they were quickly entangled together, forming a thick strand like hair. Then let the line post stretch as far back as possible, and then slam downward. Chapter 19 The Help of the Storm. Advertisement. Bang. In the urban area a few hundred meters away, a 5-story hotel suddenly separated from its upper and lower parts. The upper half of the building slid down obliquely and hit the street heavily, sending up smoke and dust that soared into the sky. Ah, what happened? As the building collapsed. Quote. The streets were in a panic, and countless people screamed and fled in panic. Fortunately, this is the edge of the city, and there are not many pedestrians on the street, so it did not cause too many casualties. At this time, a man in a gray windbreaker stood up suddenly at the corner of the street, hurriedly took out a blue phone bug from his arms and dialed it, and then whispered, Marine Code 01994, code name T-Cake, now report the Lney Kingdom, say report, a battle broke out in the eastern outer city, and it is suspected that Don Quixote Doflamingo has appeared, above. This is the warship where Crane Vice Admiral is located. We have received news that our department is approaching the Kingdom of Lney. Please continue to investigate and pay attention to safety. Above. Click. The phone bug hung up and fell into a deep sleep. Then, the mysteriously dressed man put away the phone bug, looked around, and found that no one was paying attention to him. He quickly left the street and ran towards the outside of the city. At the same time, on the sea, a Marine's first-class warship sailed across the sea, sailing forward as fast as it cut through the waves. However, the warship was somewhat damaged, especially the huge sail with the word Crane hanging high. There were many holes, and there was a whirring sound under the sea wind. Crane came out of the captain's cabin. The justice coat he was wearing was blown by the sea breeze. The deck in front of him was very messy, with overturned wooden barrels, wooden boxes, scattered cables, and various sundries everywhere. The sailors are busy and tidying up on the deck. Crane Big Sister. Miss Crane. Vice Admiral. Advertisement. Quote. When the female sailors saw the Crane, they all said hello. You have worked hard. Crane nodded with a smile, stepped on the wet deck, patrolled and walked to the bow of the ship. At this time, an orange-haired, strong female sailor next to her put down the binoculars in her hand and reported in a deep voice. Crane Big Sister, we have arrived in the waters of the Kingdom of Lney. I saw it. I didn't expect a storm in the morning to send our warship to the Kingdom of Lney, shortening our day's voyage. Crane looked into the distance, and a huge island appeared in front of him, like some kind of legendary island. Giant beasts are lying on the sea, and the buildings on the land are looming in the evening sun. I thought it would be empty again this time, but I didn't expect God to give us help. Suddenly, a tall, beautiful young beauty walked slowly onto the deck at the bow of the ship. She was wearing a ponytail, a pink shirt, a marine coat, brown trousers and black boots. The long legs outline a graceful curve, and a long knife is slung around his waist, showing a heroic spirit. Little Guillaume, don't be so optimistic. Crane shook his head with a flat expression, and then said in a deep voice, the order, select 200 people to stand by, and launch a surprise attack after I go ashore. Also, speed up and don't care about the sails. Rupture. Yes. The surrounding female sailors stood at attention one after another and responded loudly. Bullet string. On the other side, Doflamingo looked coldly at the cross who fell from midair. Instead of retracting his right hand, he raised his index finger and retracted the other fingers. The white thin line created from the fingertips was fired at high speed like a gun. Go out. At this moment, amidst the sound of shoo shoo shoo, a white shadow invisible to the naked eye flashed by, and Cross, who was in a falling state in midair, quickly turned around forcibly, and waved the jingsho in his hand. The knife resists. Clang. The edge of the blade collided with the thin white wire that was as powerful as a bullet, and a conspicuous fire burst out in the air, making Cross fall a little faster. Well, suddenly, Cross, who was unable to use his strength in midair, accidentally missed a bullet, and was hit on the left arm and shoulder on the spot. The intense pain made him utter a cry of pain. Fortunately, at this moment, the activated ground surged up again, quickly forming a big muddy hand, grabbing Cross who was about to fall to the ground, and firmly protecting it in his palm. Puff. Advertisement. The remaining few bullets all hit the back of the hand of the big mudstone hand, blasting potholes one after another, causing mudstones to splash everywhere, but they still failed to break through the defense. Seeing this, Doflamingo stopped attacking, but his body fell down extremely quickly, raised his right arm up, and then swung down suddenly when it fell to the top of Cross's head. Dropping ruffian string. In an instant, with a low voice in a cold voice, each of his 5 fingers produced a nearly transparent thin silk thread, forming 5 forked silk threads similar to leaf rakes, which penetrated the mud in an instant. She-dasho, even pierced the ground. However, Cross came out from the other side of the mudstone's big hand, holding the jingsho knife tightly in his right hand, jumped up on the spot, and made a reverse cassock cut. The sharp blade went from bottom to top, cut off Doflamingo's body. 5 color strings. Doflamingo reacted extremely quickly, and raised his hand to create extremely tough and thin silk threads on the fingertips of the 5 fingers, blocking Cross's slash with a clang sound. Immediately, the strong wind spread in a circular shape, whistling and blowing up a cloud of dust. Cross raised his head, Doflamingo lowered his head, and the two looked at each other coldly. But in the next second, the ground on both sides suddenly bulged, forming a sharp stone pillar respectively, wrapped in a fierce wind, hitting Doflamingo from left to right. Not good. Doflamingo secretly thought that something was wrong, so he quickly retreated and crossed his arms in front of his chest. Boom. Immediately, two sharp stone pillars collided with Doflamingo's arms, flying him out, and fell heavily into the distant bushes, stirring up a cloud of dust. B******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** landed on the ground again, grinning at Law's raised left arm, and casually stuck the Jingsho knife on the ground, then took off the black windbreaker with blue arabesque pattern on his body with his intact right hand, and tear off the white shirt that was worn next to her body, revealing her muscular upper body. I saw a large black and blue spot on his left shoulder, and he frowned at the pain when he moved it a little. Fortunately, it's just a dislocation. Cross muttered, pressed the left shoulder with his right hand, groped it lightly, then broke it hard, and heard the bone in the shoulder make a click, and the dislocated place was reset by him. Chapter 21 on 2. Advertisement. Afterwards, Cross shook his left arm and felt that there was nothing serious, so he pulled out the Jingsho knife stuck in the ground again. The next moment, in the smoke and dust in the bushes in the distance, a figure quickly lifted into the air, and then swooped down like a big pink bird. Seeing this, Cross had a serious face and sharp eyes, and he took big strides directly, running forward like a tiger descending a mountain. The two are like sparks hitting the earth. When they come into contact, a fierce battle breaks out again. Boom blah 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 blah. Boom, 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 boom. For a while, the sound of dense metal and iron collisions was endless, and the huge thunder-like roar made the ground shake even more. After a while, the ground was cut into pieces by powerful slashes and countless sharp thin threads. Army flag. Suddenly, the ground shook, like a large piece of cloth fluttering in the wind, giving people a feeling of light waves, which made Doflamingo and Cross almost lose their footing, and quickly stopped their forward steps. This ability is Diamante. Doflamingo looked down at the undulating ground beneath his feet, then turned to look in another direction. Cross followed Doflamingo's gaze as well, just in time to see a guy who looked like a combination of rock singer and Aboriginal style. Dover, Gladius just came to the news, saying that he has intercepted Marine's phone bug, saying that Crane's warship is coming to Lney Kingdom. Diamante said anxiously. There is also Lney Kingdom. The army has completed its assembly and is heading in this direction. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face became gloomy, and he said, What a troublesome guy. Then I will join hands with me and kill this brat. Wait, Dover. Diamante showed hesitation, waved his hands quickly, and said, I'm not good at it, only you have great strength. No, it will definitely work if you join forces with me. Doflamingo said seriously. Don't say that, you're blowing people to heaven. Diamante had a shy expression, and waved her hand again in embarrassment to deny it. Advertisement. No, only the two of us work together to quickly defeat this brat. I need your help. Doflamingo shook his head, and stretched out his hand to Diamante with a serious expression, making an invitation gesture. Look at what you said, I'm really not good at it. Diamante turned her body sideways, still looking reluctant. Doflamingo had no choice but to withdraw his hand and said, Forget it, since you said that. Kanglang. I will join forces with you, Dover, and I will definitely make this B********** D look good. Seeing that Doflamingo withdrew his hand, Diamante suddenly pulled out the long sword at his waist, his voice became much higher in excitement, and he stared fiercely at Cross. Foo 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 foo, so reliable. Doflamingo grinned and nodded in satisfaction. On the other side, Cross had a dull expression, watching Doflamingo and Diamante's wonderful performance with an unbelievable expression. It turned out that he had only seen similar scenes in anime, but he actually saw them in person today. This wave of commercial bragging. It almost blinded his 24K pure gold dog eyes. Foo 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 foo. Doflamingo looked at Cross again, and said with a ferocious smile, Little brat, your time of death has come. Sword snake sword. Immediately, Diamante ran forward without any nonsense, and took the lead in attacking Cross. The tough long sword in his hand became as light as silk, as if fluttering in the wind. I saw him throwing the sword forward, the light and fluttering sword body was swimming in the air like a snake, and stretched forward quickly, and unexpectedly circled around Cross's back to launch a stab. Like a lion hiding in the grass like majesty, he suddenly rushed out and bit someone. Don't take it out and throw it away. Cross didn't even look behind him, so he swung his knife and swept towards the back, collided with Diamante's longsword with a clang sound, and sparked a few sparks. Bullet string. Almost at the same time, Doflamingo rushed out quickly, raised his hand and shot a thin white line from the front of his index finger, flying out like a bullet, and there was a sharp whistling sound in the air. It's your turn. Advertisement. Cross let out a low cry, and turned his body like lightning, avoiding the line bullet, but was hit by the line bullet on a tall coconut tree behind him, accompanied by a muffled bang. Thick % strong. The trunk of the tree was broken in the middle, and the upper half of the trunk with a few green coconuts on it fell down and hit the ground heavily. Then Cross swooped forward and was about to slash at the nearby Doflamingo with a knife, but his foot missed the ground, staggered on the spot, and almost fell to the ground. 5 color strings. Doflamingo was suspended in midair, and took the opportunity to wave 5 sharp thin wires, cutting towards Cross' body. Made. With a gloomy face, Cross looked at the wave-like ground under his feet, and hastily stopped the Jingsho knife in his hand in front of him, narrowly blocking the cutting of the 5 sharp silk threads. Clang. Hearing a crisp sound of gold and iron clanging, Cross was sent flying by Doflamingo's blow, and fell heavily to the ground a few meters away. At this time, Diamante showed a proud face, and sneered. Ha 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 ha, I haven't fought on such a floating terrain before. I am a bannerman who ate the flying fruit, and I can turn everything I touch into cloth a silk-like shape. Bastards. Then you haven't been swallowed by the living earth, have you? Cross turned over angrily, put one hand on the ground, and shouted, Activation Inorganic Reincarnation. The invisible power spread, immediately giving life to the erratic land, depriving Diamante of control over this land. Nani. Looking at the calm ground, Diamante couldn't help being taken aback, trying to understand why her abilities had failed. Rumble. Immediately afterwards, the ground with a radius of hundreds of meters shook violently, and a large amount of soil surged up, mixed with countless stones, and quickly formed sharp stone pillars like giant tentacles, moving towards Doflamingo and the two of Amandi collided with each other. Smelly brat. Doflamingo gritted his teeth, quickly manipulated the silk thread on his body, pulled his body and flew towards the sky, and released dozens of sharp and thin silk threads, forming a large trap-like net in front of him. Then I saw 7 or 8 sharp stone pillars that looked like huge tentacles entering the big net, and the big net suddenly shrank, chopping up all the huge stone pillars in an instant, turning them into mud and rocks scattered in the air. Chapter 21 Massacre. Advertisement. Bullfighting cape. At the same time, Diamante was also attacked by many tentacle-like sharp stone pillars, almost in all directions, making him realize that he had nowhere to hide, so he raised the red cloak on his body, and then released the ability to transform it for steel walls. It turned out that his cloak was made of steel. Although it was light and fluffy, it was actually still steel, which could be transformed into a solid steel defense at any time to resist external damage. Boom, 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 boom. But in the next second, sharp stone pillars like huge tentacles hit Diamante's raised steel cloak one after another, each blow containing astonishing power. Even though Diamante's steel cloak is extremely strong, under the repeated impacts of these huge sharp stone pillars, the strong shock can't help but make Diamante feel blood churn all over, and even retreat again and again, wanting to vomit blood. Until the last blow, a thicker stone pillar that was a circle thicker than the other stone pillars was wrapped in a strong wind and hit Diamante's steel cloak hard, accompanied by a loud boom. The violent air wave spread, and finally knocked the latter directly into the air, smashing heavily on the sandstone ground more than 10 meters away. Who? PH. Cross was panting heavily, sweat dripped from his forehead, and a look of exhaustion appeared on his face. It is still very difficult for him who has just eaten the living fruit to activate such a large area of ground in one breath. Fortunately, he just heard the conversation between Diamante and Doflamingo, saying that Marine was approaching, otherwise he would have left Humir and others and fled. Found it. Over there. Follow up. Damn pirates, how dare you come to Lney Kingdom to be presumptuous. Quote. Suddenly, bursts of noisy sounds came from a distance, and there were many footsteps of people running, as if an army was approaching. Not long after, several brown flags were unfurled, and a fairly neatly formed army appeared in front of Cross, numbering more than 1,000. I saw those soldiers wearing half-body iron armor, a few of them held muskets, but more of them held weapons such as long swords, spears, and shields. The team stretched out a width of hundreds of meters and surrounded them in a half-surrounded meniscus formation. Listen to the pirates in front, we are the Lney Kingdom army, as long as you put down your weapons and surrender, your lives will be spared. An officer came out and shouted with a big iron horn. Apparently, the officials of the Kingdom of Lney regarded Cross, Doflamingo and others as pirates who came to make trouble. Foo, what an annoying bug. Doflamingo turned his head to look, the veins on his forehead were bulging, and he let out a low, hideous laugh. Advertisement. In the next second, he completely ignored the Cross in front of him, and rushed straight towards the army of the Lney Kingdom, like a big pink bird that was preying, with cold murderous aura rushing like a tide. Is something coming? No, it's a human. That man is flying. My eyes must be blurred, how can people fly? Quote. There was a small-scale chaos in the army of the Lney Kingdom. Many people looked at Doflamingo flying in the air, and were shocked by his murderous aura, and they were about to retreat with pale faces. Hey, it's dangerous, run away. Cross, face changed slightly, and he quickly shouted. However, as soon as the words fell, Doflamingo waved his hands outward, releasing dozens of sharp thin silk threads, forming a huge net to envelop the Lney Kingdom's army. Immediately, Doflamingo clenched his hands tightly, and the terrifying net shrank suddenly. Before the soldiers could react, they were swiftly slashed across their bodies by extremely sharp and thin silk threads, and even the iron armor couldn't hinder it. Ah, my hand. Why can't I stand up? Ah. It hurts so much. It hurts so bad. Kill me. It hurts so bad. Quote. In an instant, the bodies of a large number of soldiers were cut into several pieces. The whole body was like collapsed building blocks, and they fell apart on the spot, turning into piles of fresh meat in the slaughterhouse. Whether it's trees or rocks, whether it's iron armor or weapons, or a tough human body, they can't stop the extremely sharp and thin threads. In the dusk of the evening, Cross's expression was dull, blood was red in front of his eyes, and the front had turned into a bloody scene like a slaughterhouse of Shura, with countless limbs flying, large intestines and other internal organs slipped all over the ground, and the hot blood instantly dyed the grass red. The pungent bloody smell is extremely strong. Screams and howls were intertwined, and the moans of pain and powerlessness were intermittent. The surviving soldiers hugged their heads and howled hysterically in horror. Vomit. Cross quickly covered his mouth, almost vomiting. Advertisement. He has killed pirates for 2 years, and he has seen countless dead people and corpses. He is no longer the boy who never killed a chicken. However, he had never seen this scene before, with so many deaths and such tragic death. It was not like a battlefield at all, but like a slaughterhouse for human beings. It turns out that human life is so fragile. A strong man can easily deprive a large number of lives with a wave of his hand. Perhaps the lives of ordinary people are not even a series of numbers in the eyes of these powerful people, but just ants that are trampled to death at will. Because no one will count how many ants will die. Foo 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 foo, what a beautiful color. Doflamingo laughed wantonly, finally venting some frustration and anger that had hit a wall on Cross. Thousands of soldiers were almost wiped out by Doflamingo with one move, more than half of them were killed or injured. Even if the rest were not frightened mad, they completely lost their will to fight. To them, the man in front of them is simply a monster, not something ordinary people like them can contend with. However, as if Doflamingo hadn't played enough, the palm opened upwards, and dozens of thin silk threads that were invisible to the naked eye erupted from the palm, scattered directly in the air, and then fell like a meteor shower, piercing the bodies of many soldiers inside. Parasite string. Doflamingo groaned softly, raised his right arm forward, retracted the index finger and ring finger among the 5 fingers, raised the middle finger, thumb and little finger, and began to manipulate the soldiers who were only wrapped around the body by the thread. Ah! Why did you cut me? No, not me. My body is out of control. Get away. My body is out of control, help me. What a joke. How could such a thing happen? Quote. Among the surviving soldiers, someone suddenly raised a sword and slashed at his companions, which caused more chaos. I saw many people bursting into tears, weeping in despair, crying to keep their companions away from them, or to save themselves, but I was holding a sword like a madman and slashing around. Obviously, Doflamingo is controlling these people to kill each other and deliberately playing with these soldiers. In particular, the despairing cries of the soldiers actually gave him an expression of enjoyment. Chapter 22 Anger and Killing Intent. Advertisement. Doflamingo, you damn. Cross had a ferocious face and roared full of anger. The terrifying aura erupted like a volcanic eruption, instantly turning the sky and the earth into a gray and white strange space. Immediately, the air was trembling and the wind was howling. The surviving soldiers of the Lney kingdom were suddenly shaken, their eyes turned white, and they fell to the ground in a faint like bone Nomi cards. At this moment, Cross couldn't take it anymore. When he was watching anime, he admired Doflamingo, a heroic pirate, his style, and his words. However, when this guy killed and played with life recklessly in front of him, when countless weak wailing, pain and prayers reached his ears, he realized that his heart was throbbing, that he was a normal people, not cold-blooded monsters. Obviously, with Doflamingo's strength, he could use the Conqueror's haki to stun these people, but he used the most cruel means to kill, and wantonly played with the survivors who had no fighting intentions, acting like a devil. So, how can a normal person be indifferent to such a bloody and cruel scene? Cross stared at the terrifying scene in front of his eyes with tears in his eyes, his mind was completely blank, and his only thought was to stop the other party. Do everything in your power to stop this cold-blooded demon. Foo 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 foo. Doflamingo turned his head with a strange smile, and said in a playful manner, little brat, you are such a disappointment. Bang. The same powerful Conqueror's haki also erupted and collided with Cross's Conqueror's haki, immediately erupting with a deafening roar, causing the earth to shake violently. It was as if the actual terrifying power had turned into a strong wind, howling across the sky and the ground, and even streaks of red and black lightning burst out, wandering wantonly in the air. Boom. However, in the next second, what responded to Doflamingo was the loud sound of Cross crushing the ground. Dozens of hundreds of cracks spread rapidly in all directions. Mi quickly ran towards the direction of Doflamingo. You garbage in the sea, die. Little devil, how can I let you disturb Dover's mood? Diamante shouted angrily, immediately raised his long sword, and then swung it out. Advertisement. Half-moon funeral. Boom. Boom. A huge wave of sword energy erupted, splitting the earth into two easily like cutting tofu, and violently attacked Cross. Go away. One sword-style Tiangong. Cross yelled violently, and his running speed remained undiminished. The veins on his bulging muscles protruded, and he brazenly swung the Jingsho knife in his hand, and slashed out at the wave of sword energy in front of him. The sharp blade fell, and actually set off a white mist visible to the naked eye. It turned out that the terrifying force compressed the air into a form visible to the naked eye. Rumble. In an instant, the power of Cross's blade smashed through the wave of sword energy that Diamante set off, and then the terrifying blade wind that erupted unexpectedly remained undiminished, tearing apart the ferocious cracks like ravines on the ground, hit Diamante directly. Impossible. Diamante's eyes were terrified, and he let out a scream in disbelief, and was blown away by the powerful knife wind, and was directly pushed into the seaside reefs hundreds of meters away, splashing more than 10 meters away. High water column. At this moment, a gully-like crack with a length of hundreds of meters appeared on the ground, extending from the land on the shore all the way to the beach by the sea. Everyone who witnessed it couldn't help showing shock. Diamante. Doflamingo twisted his face and looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Unexpectedly, was killed by % in one blow. Is this kid really an underage kid? It's your turn next, Doflamingo. Cross yelled loudly. The huge voice was like thunder like Hong Lei, and even set off a substantial sound wave, arousing a violent wind out of thin air and sweeping outward. From his previous life to this life, he has never had such a crazy idea of wanting to kill a person. Scenes of bloody scenes like Shira's slaughterhouse and the desperate cries that are still fresh in his memory are constantly stimulating his mind. The killing intent surged and boiled like a volcanic eruption. My heart is cold. My knife is cold. Advertisement. But only my blood is hot. Damn brat. Doflamingo's face was ashen, and the anger and murderous intent in his heart almost drove him crazy. Without even thinking too much, he rushed out in an extremely violent manner. Even Diamante in the seaside reefs was ignored. Up. Fortunately, the reefs by the sea were located in shallow water, so no one would be drowned at all, otherwise the Don Quixote family would have lost a top cadre early today. Without the slightest hesitation, Cross faced the flying attack of Doflamingo, and immediately slashed out with a tang bamboo. The move is simple, but the power contained in it cuts the air in front of it. One-shot style, heavy slash. 5-color strings. Doflamingo yelled like a low growl, and the arm he swung out was quickly coated with a layer of black metal, controlling 5 sharp thin wires to cut forward. Boom. In an instant, the blade collided with the silk thread, but there was a loud noise like a boulder falling, and bursts of red and black electricity spread in all directions, covering the area of Conqueror's haki with a radius of hundreds of meters. A strong gust of wind was stirred up, whizzing across the sky and the ground, causing the ground to crack in violent vibrations, forming countless cracks and spreading to all directions. The two relatively immature kings still showed strength beyond ordinary people. It is completely impossible for ordinary people to even fight close to the two of them. Clang, 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 clang. Afterwards, the two figures kept colliding with each other, sometimes separated, sometimes overlapped, and the collision of the famous knife and the sharp silk thread caused conspicuous sparks in the air. The air waves visible to the naked eye swept across like a gust of wind, the huge force made the ground tremble, and the scope of the battle was rapidly expanding. However, facing Doflamingo, who has already worked hard in the sea for many years and has mastered Conqueror's haki perfectly, the fledgling Cross is obviously too immature. Because excellent talent cannot allow Cross to master armament haki out of thin air, let alone imagine the experience of fighting against the strong. Even the observation haki, which he was born awakened, is not as proficient in combat as Doflamingo. As a result, such a scene appeared in the battle. No matter how powerful Cross's sword skills and strength are, even if he was lucky enough to knock Doflamingo out, it would be difficult to hurt Doflamingo who was defended by armament haki. On the contrary, Cross's powerful talent did not endow him with strong defensive power, which made him unable to compare with the powerful percent flesh percent body of a certain steel balloon, so that his body was quickly cut by Doflamingo's thin wires and appeared one after another bloody injury. Chapter 23 Marine and the Curtain. Advertisement. Hoo. Cross was panting heavily, his chest heaving violently like a blower, his bare upper body was covered with scars, sweat and blood mixed together, continuously flowing on the ground. Doflamingo on the opposite side was almost as exhausted, and his physical exertion was extremely serious, but he didn't use so many wounds. However, although he has armament haki's defense and no obvious wounds on his body, he was hit flying like a ball more than once or twice, so that his body was covered with bruises and purple spots, and he didn't get better. At this moment, the high-intensity fierce battle lasted for nearly an hour. Under the dark sky, the land was already devastated. Most of the coconut grove with an area of more than 100 mu has disappeared, and there are fallen trees everywhere. The red brick warehouse has also collapsed in half, buried a lot of weapons and ammunition. Cross and Doflamingo were panting and glaring at each other, but they were both tired and exhausted. It can be said that Cross overestimated himself and underestimated Doflamingo. Instead, Doflamingo underestimated Cross and overestimated himself. However, the current situation is not good for Cross. Because he was bleeding and there was no time to stop the bleeding. When he bled so much that he was too weak to fight, it would be time for him to die at the hands of Doflamingo. Foo. Suddenly, Doflamingo laughed lowly, with a stern look on the corner of his mouth, and said sarcastically, "Little brat, it seems that I won." Bah. Cross spat out a mouthful of bloody phlegm in disdain, and said stiffly, "I think you're a toad yawning, what a big tone. You wanna die." As soon as Doflamingo's face turned dark, he was about to raise his hand and go forward to attack again, but the next second, there was a bolu call from the phone bug in his arms. Hearing the sound, Doflamingo paused, took a deep look at Cross, then put down his hands, and took out a snotty blue phone bug from his bosom. Click. It's me, what's wrong? Dover, I can't say it, get out of there quickly. Advertisement. Torable, what happened? A familiar voice came from the phone bug, making Doflamingo frown, and asked in a very bad tone. Dover, it's Marine. Torapal on the other end of the phone bug yelled. Crane led many sailors to the port, and joined forces with the garrison of the Lney kingdom, and they are rushing towards you. Nani. Doflamingo's expression changed drastically, and he subconsciously looked in the direction of the city port. Sure enough, his observation haki sensed an abnormality, and numerous sound sources were entering the range of his observation haki. In the next second, the brown military flag of the Kingdom of Lney appeared on the horizon in the distance, and then a long, black line appeared, crowds of people surged, and footsteps were dense, more than before. Cavalry, musketeers, spearmen, sword and shield soldiers. There are almost all types of soldiers, the number of which is no less than a few thousand or even tens of thousands. They have already set up their formations and surrounded them aggressively. Moreover, Doflamingo also saw some marine soldiers wearing white shirts, blue trousers, and blue scarves among the army of the Lney kingdom. The leader was an older female sailor with gray hair. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Cross raised his head and laughed, pointed at Doflamingo, and said happily, "Today is not the day I die, but the day you go to jail." Ha 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 ha. Crane. Doflamingo gritted his teeth, looked at Marine and the joint army of the Lney kingdom, and then at Cross opposite, almost vomiting blood in anger. Obviously, he was about to kill this damn B***********, but Marine came, and the one who came was Naval Headquarters Chief Staff Officer, Crane, a troublesome woman he was unwilling to fight against no matter what. Hey, Marine is here already. Dover, get out. Torrebel on the other end of the phone bug seemed to sense something was wrong, and hurriedly urged. At this time, seeing the arrival of the reinforcement army, Cross actually felt that he was full of strength again, and shouted energetically, "Stay here, Doflamingo." After finishing speaking, he rushed forward, and the Jingsho knife in his hand pierced Doflamingo's heart like a spear. However, something unexpected happened. Doflamingo actually took the initiative to retreat, and the invisible silk thread pulled his body, and quickly flew towards the sky. Don't try to escape, Yidaliu Fimang. Don't even think about escaping, one sword style dance of flame. Advertisement. In an instant, two voices of a man and a woman sounded at the same time, and a blue and white crescent-shaped slash flew into the air, and a scorching flame slash was flying in the sky. Sky's path. Doflamingo's face changed slightly, and his flying speed was a little faster, and he quickly dodged the two slashes. Nah, Dover, let's go to sea. We took advantage of the night to drive the boat. At this time, the phone in Doflamingo's hand rang again. Doflamingo in midair turned his head and looked towards the sea, and sure enough, he saw a flamingo-shaped ship appearing in the distance on the sea. In the next second, Doflamingo flew towards the sea quickly without looking back, and when passing by the reefs by the sea, he released a few silk threads from his long palm, accurately binding Diamante, who fell into a coma in the reefs. Day % you ancestor. Seeing that Doflamingo fled to the sea, Cross yelled angrily, and almost threw the Jinxiu knife in his hand on the ground. It's a pity that Doflamingo has the ability to fly, and if he wants to escape, few people in the entire sea can catch him. Hey, who are you? Suddenly, a young female sailor broke away from the combined army of the good marine in the kingdom of Lney, walked over quickly with a long knife in her hand, glared at Cross angrily, and asked very rudely. Call. Cross glanced at the other party, feeling a little familiar, but he didn't paint immediately, but breathed out a sigh of relief, then sat down directly, and stuck the Jingsho knife in his hand on the ground. Then he replied unceremoniously, "Before asking someone else's name, it is polite to state your own name first." You. The female sea soldier's pretty face turned cold, and said in a cold voice, "I am Major Naval Headquarters, Guillaume. Brat, report your name and identity now. I suspect that you are colluding with pirates." Cross looked at the female sailor in front of him with some surprise. He didn't expect this young female sailor to be Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral and Admiral's alternate Momosuke Guillaume. But he changed his mind. Now is the beginning of the era of great pirates, and the three admirals of the future Marines have not yet reached the % position. Graduate. The future Momosuke Guillaume also looks very young, not particularly old, so it is not surprising that he is a major at this time. I speculate that Guillaume should be older than Hina and Smoker, but not too much, so I am only in my early 20s, and the rank of major is not too small, not too big, just right. In addition, this is a personal guess, do not spray if you disagree. Chapter 24. Advertisement. When Cross was recalling the plot, Guillaume looked at Cross, who had been silent for a long time, and stared at himself, and cursed angrily. Hey, brat, where are you looking? Cross woke up suddenly, quickly waved his hands and said, "I'm really sorry, Ms. Guillaume, I just had a big fight with Doflamingo, and I was really tired, so I lost my mind. By the way, I am the nobleman of Tobias Kingdom, Earl Amphitheater Cross, not a pirate." Quote. Afterwards, Cross did not hide anything, and traded the kingdom of Tobias with the underground arms dealer, Postman, and then Postman was killed by the bear pirates, which led to things like Doflamingo, and told Guillaume all about it. After listening to it, Guillaume looked at Cross suspiciously. She didn't quite believe that such a young kid like Cross could fight Doflamingo for a long time, but the devastated post-war scene around her made her unable to say, no, believe in 3 words. However, Guillaume still put away his knife and stopped looking at Cross with hostile eyes. You are really young and promising. Hearing the sound, the senior staff officer at the Marine headquarters smiled and looked at Cross with admiration. I'm overwhelmed, I almost died. Cross shook his head helplessly, and then let Marine's medical staff bandage the wounds all over his body. Of course, Cross also knew that Suru and Guillaume would definitely not believe in his own words, so after dressing up the wounds all over his body, he walked up to the unconscious General Humir like a mummy, and a few big % forced him to make a move. Wake up the other party and let the Kingdom General explain to Marine. Immediately, Crane contacted Naval Headquarters with a phone bug and asked Naval Headquarters to seek confirmation from Tobias Kingdom, which confirmed the identities of Cross, General Humir and others. Things were even simpler later on. All the pirates of the Bear Pirates were captured by Marine, and Storm Bear Codel Onic, who was seriously injured and unconscious, was handcuffed to seastone handcuffs that restricted the power of demon fruit. Although the kingdom of Lney was displeased that the kingdom of Tobias was carrying out arms transactions in its own territory, it did not detain Cross and General Humir. It just planned to go through official channels and report to King Harwich of the kingdom of Tobias. 19. Protested. Advertisement. After all, in this incident, nearly 1,000 people were killed or injured in the kingdom of Lney, and hundreds of soldiers were frightened to the point of insanity. Of course, this loss must be counted on the kingdom of Tobias. Cross and General Humil did not refute. Although they were not responsible for the deaths and injuries of these people, they were indeed one of the culprits for this incident because of their arms trade in the territory of the Lney kingdom. However, the reason why the Lney kingdom did not detain Cross and General Humil and his party was not because of gentlemanly demeanor, but because the battle between Cross and Doflamingo made the high-level officials of the Lney kingdom understand that this 15-year-old young earl, it is not an existence that ordinary troops can deal with. In the morning of the next day, the king of the kingdom of Lney and the king of the kingdom of Tobias, Harwich 19, finally reached an agreement after a night of discussions. The kingdom of Lney may not hold the kingdom of Tobias accountable for this incident, but the kingdom of Tobias must take out 300 million baileys to compensate the kingdom of Lney. The ammunition in the brick warehouse was taken away. In other words, in the end, it will still cost 300 million baileys to buy this batch of arms, and there is no way to leave the 300 million baileys. After Cross learned of the conditions of the Lney kingdom, he knew what the other party was thinking. You people from the kingdom of Tobias came to our kingdom of Lney, and even fought a big battle, not just because of these barbarians. Okay, your people can go, but don't even think about taking all these arms if you don't pay the price. Because this is the territory of the Lney kingdom, it must be implemented according to the laws of the Lney kingdom. It is illegal to conduct private arms transactions with pirates. The Lney kingdom has the right to confiscate dirty things, even the world government admit it. No way, the kingdom of Tobias was at a loss in this matter, and was caught by the kingdom of Lney. If they want arms, they must naturally follow the requirements of the other party. This is a contest within the scope of the rules. Unless the kingdom of Tobias wants to rely on the power of Cross, break the rules, and forcibly take away this batch of munitions, the consequences will cause the kingdom of Tobias to be rejected by all countries in North Blue and become the next kingdom of Germa. But the difference is that the kingdom of Tobias is not as powerful as the kingdom of Germa. Unless, Cross is willing to stay in the kingdom of Tobias for the rest of his life and protect the country with his own strength. Thinking of this, Cross smiled and shook his head. Staying in the Tobias kingdom for the rest of his life was a complete waste of the extraordinary talent of his body. Staying in the small kingdom of Tobias all his life, he can't learn powerful physical skills, can't hone his own swordsmanship, and has no one to guide his own haki, let alone confront the strong, even the rest of the world. If you can't even appreciate the scenery, then what's the point of his time travel? Advertisement. On the pier of the port, Cross and Guillaume stood side by side on the wooden embankment, leisurely looking at the huge marine warship in front of them. Thick iron outer armor, large caliber triple ship turret, wide hull, towering three-masted sail. This is a first-class warship of the Naval Headquarters standard, full of thousands of people, Vice Admiral and Admiral level high-level generals, a ship that can only be owned by an official. It can be said that this Marine's first-class warship can hit the entire Tobias kingdom by blocking the port of the Tobias kingdom. In terms of technological level alone, apart from the kingdom of Germa in the nation of science, there is no country in the entire North Blue that can manufacture such warships. The warship is very handsome. Guillaume put one hand on Cross's shoulder, pointed at the huge warship in front of him with a smile and asked, "Hey, little Cross, have you ever thought about joining the Marine?" Being a Marine, Cross was dressed like a mummy, with a hint of thought in his eyes, thinking seriously about Guillaume's problem. The overlord of the sea has never been pirates, or other maritime powers, but an army called Justice, Marine. What's more, Marine has a Marine school with a complete education system. The chief instructor in charge of guidance is the former Marine Admiral, so he can definitely learn knowledge and skills that will make him stronger. Most importantly, Cross witnessed Doflamingo's massacre with his own eyes, and the option of pirate has been completely erased from his mind. Then the next step is to join Marine, to fight against pirates and uphold justice. Or join the Revolutionary Army and make it your mission to overthrow the tyranny of the Celestial Dragons. Or be an unfettered bounty hunter hunting down pirates. Or becoming an adventurer like Vinbrand Rolando and exploring the strange scenery of this world is also a good choice. However, at this moment, the horrible images of yesterday reappeared in Cross's mind. The bloody Shira massacre and the desperate cries were still echoing in his mind, making him in a trance for a while. Cross didn't sleep all night, because as soon as he closed his eyes, the appearance of those soldiers who died tragically appeared in front of his eyes, and the desperate cries echoed in his ears repeatedly. Chapter 25. Advertisement. Little Cross, are you okay? Suddenly, Guillaume's voice rang in Cross's ear, making him wake up from the trance. Cross rubbed his temples with some headaches, then saw Guillaume's worried expression, smiled lightly. "It's just that I didn't sleep well last night, it's okay." "All right." Guillaume nodded hesitantly, looked at Cross with weird eyes, and said again, "Then what do you think about my proposal just now? Crane Big Sister said that you are a genius, and it would be a pity not to participate in Marine." "That's right, it's an honor to be appreciated by a big man like Crane Vice Admiral." Cross was a little surprised, turned his head involuntarily, and looked towards the shore. At this moment, Crane Vice Admiral, who was talking to General Humir, seemed to notice Cross' gaze, and turned to look at Cross, showing a gentle smile. Cross smiled and nodded, then looked at General Humir from the air, and thought to himself. Hey, General Humir, Marine is poaching the corner of Tobias' kingdom, are you sure you have no objection? At this time, Guillaume glared at Cross angrily, and said unhappily, come on, kid, you talk like those old fritters, it's not cute at all. All right. Cross waved his hands boredly, and said, Dear Ms. Guillaume, I need to think about participating in the Marine, but I need to wait until I transport this batch of munitions back to Tobias' kingdom. Of course, if you think about it, go to the nearest Marine branch to sign up. Crane Big Sister will greet you in advance and transfer you directly to the Marine School in Naval Headquarters. Guillaume's pretty face showed a serious expression. Looking at Cross's immature face seriously, the scene of the conversation not long ago recalled in his mind. 10 minutes ago. Little Guillaume, come here. On the shore of the port, the crane stood by the embankment, waving to Guillaume not far away. What's up? Advertisement. Seeing the crane's greeting, Guillaume held the chopped green coconut in one hand and the long knife at his waist in the other, and walked a few steps closer. I'll give you a mission to test that young Earl and ask him if he intends to join the Marine. Crane said directly. Guillaume's chow percent showed a surprised expression on her face, and said strangely, why do you ask that brat? That kid was only 15 years old, and he was able to start a battle with Doflamingo. If this talent does not take the right path, but becomes a pirate or some dangerous person, it will become a big trouble for our Marine. Crane said in a flat tone. Said. Crane Big Sister, don't you think too highly of this brat? Guillaume was very unconvinced, holding a reed pipe in his mouth, sucking the fresh coconut juice from the green coconut. Suru didn't speak, but took a look at Guillaume and asked, have you heard of Douglas Bullet? Douglas Bullet, I've heard the name. Guillaume's pretty face became serious, and said in a deep voice, See Circle Calendar in 1501, Marine launched a buster call to it, even Vice Admiral Garp and Sengoku Admiral were mobilized, and only then did the ex-Luogia pirates crew captured in Impel down. That's right, but do you know how old Douglas Bullet is? Suru didn't wait for Guillaume to answer, and said to himself, Douglas Bullet destroyed his own country when he was 14 years old. He was wandering in the sea at the age of 15. Until he met Luogia, he was defeated and joined the Luogia pirates. He quit the Luogia pirates at the age of 18 and became famous as a newcomer. At the age of 21, Luogia was executed, and Bullet ran away in the sea. Turned the whole sea upside down, and then at the age of 22, Bullet was besieged by Marine's Buster Call fleet and many pirates defeated by Bullet, and was captured into Impel down until exhausted. That guy is a monster. After listening to Suru's narration, Guillaume couldn't help being shocked to the point of dumbfounded. Because she didn't expect that someone could destroy a country at the age of 14, which is too exaggerated. Talent doesn't mean everything, because ordinary people can also reach the peak level of the world by virtue of their acquired hard work. Crane's eyes narrowed, and when he said this, he paused for a moment, as if thinking of someone, and then continued, but guys with extraordinary talents are troublesome without exception. So I hope this trouble will become a trouble for pirates, not a trouble for Marines. Guillaume's pretty face was calm, and after a moment of silence, she said slowly, I understand, Crane Big Sister, this task is entrusted to me. Afterwards, Marine repaired the damaged sails on the warship, boarded the ship, escorted the pirates of the Bear Pirates, and left the kingdom of Lney. Advertisement. Although Marine didn't capture Doflamingo this time, but captured the entire Storm Bear Pirates, it was a worthwhile trip. After all, Doflamingo can fly, and if he wants to run, there are not many people in the whole sea who can catch him. Cross stood on the embankment of the port, watched as the warship of Crane left the port and disappeared into the horizon, and then returned to the warship Harwich 19. At this time, after contacting the officials of the Lney Kingdom, General Hummel reluctantly handed over the 3 suitcases filled with Bailey to the other party, and then with the help of the manpower of the Lney Kingdom, he began to move the 3 suitcases worth 3 billionaires' arms. Boxes full of muskets and various types of projectile wooden boxes, as well as round wooden barrels containing gunpowder were moved by the workers of the Lney Kingdom, and they were moved onto the deck of the battleship Harwich 19 like ants. Superior. It's just that when 20 artillery pieces, dozens of projectiles, and several barrels of gunpowder barrels automatically lined up in a neat line and appeared at the port laughing without anyone carrying them, it was really scary. Many people were ruined, thinking it was a monster coming. Fortunately, the officials of the Kingdom of Lney knew the details and summoned some bold soldiers to maintain order, which prevented the entire port from falling into chaos. See you next time. Until the afternoon, a fat official from the Kingdom of Lney stood on the pier, smiling and waving to General Hummel. You must know that the death benefits of the Kingdom of Lney are not high, 100,000 berries for soldiers, and 200,000 berries for middle and lower level officers. That is to say, in this incident, the total pensions for nearly 1,000 casualties in the Kingdom of Lney are up to 100 million Bailey, earn 200 million Baileys from Tobias' kingdom for free. Otherwise, the officials of the Kingdom of Lney would not have a smile on their faces, and they would even welcome them to come again next time. Humph. General Humir on the deck of the battleship had a dark face, turned around without saying a word, and quickly returned to his room. I thought I could save 300 million Baileys and bring back the ammunition without spending a penny, but I didn't expect that things would have twists and turns, and the end result was to spend money to buy the ammunition. Really? Cross smiled wryly and shook his head, then ordered to the activated battleship, hold up the anchor, put down the sail, and go to sea.